Oh, you have.
Welcome to the Save Our Children podcast. We're your hosts, Becky and Bridget. On today's episode, we are so blessed to have Tom Althouse, father, abuse survivor, voice for the voiceless, writer of screenplays and off-Broadway shows, and the original writer of the screenplay, The Immortals, which many of you now know as the billion-dollar series called The Matrix. Unfortunately, he didn't get any name recognition, money, or credit for the writing of this series. Instead, he lost 2 sons and all of his jobs were taken from him. But he's still fighting to get the truth out there, and he's joining us today to continue speaking his truth. Recently, Emma interviewed Tom on her podcast, The Imagination. We recommend that you take the time to go and listen to that episode, as it will give you some additional context to our episode today. Thank you, Tom, so much for joining us. For those listeners out there who have never heard of you or your story before, can you give us some of your history, how you grew up, how that impacted your creativity, and what your life has been like over these past few decades?
Basically, I was born into a family of a certain bloodlines that are very key right now these days. And bloodlines apparently are very, very important now. I was born basically artistic right from the start. I knew I had, I thought everybody had that, like music, sculpting, art, singing, dancing, drawing, painting, writing, everything. So it's just like, I actually set a goal for myself to do one master work of every single medium. And I started doing that. And then we had a couple break-ins where these things were stolen. But I was told as a child I had to be perfect. That's how I was brought up. You have to be perfect or you will be beaten. And so it was unbelievable. It was like, whoa. So I actually set out to try to be the best I could, at the same time realizing I need to make a difference in this world and lift people through compassion. I didn't see compassion in my realm at all. It was all very strict, deadly, dangerous. I've got scars and everything from continuous beatings like 3 a.m. in the morning, whatever, where my brothers would take part in it. So I learned a way of thinking to create where I wasn't allowed to create. If I brought artwork home, it was torn up. I wasn't allowed to create art, wasn't allowed to do anything. The brothers were supposed to advance, I was not. So what I did was I had these layers of thinking I developed where I could think and create no matter what was being done to my body. I could create in different ways. Soon that became exercises where I could tumble in my mind. I could learn how to create whole kinds of visionscapes. I could lucid dream at a very young age, where if I had recurring nightmares, I would knew I was in a dream, and I'd set the field with lollipops popping up. And I would actually roll credits in my dream, like 5 years old. I would roll credits to try to convince whatever was happening that this was the end of that nightmare. I'm ending it. So I would roll credits. I got to the point where I would start to explore the dreamscapes. And this leads to the whole thing. One of the movies I pitched, Bonaventura, as a young adult, was the dream movie, I called it. That was pitched along with the Immortals that became the Matrix. The reason Neo flies, just a slight tangent, is because they like the dream movie, where the dream candidates are actually ex-cons and they're being experimented on. The one main character learns to fly in his dream to escape. They thought it reminded them of Superman. So they mixed the two together and made Neo fly. Neo's not supposed to fly in the Matrix. It ruins the whole story because there's nothing at stake anymore. He can escape anytime he wants with superpowers. That's why they also put the telephone booths in. Wachowskis filled everything in that they thought was cool off the original screenplay right here. This one that precedes the Matrix. Matrix was shot in 1999. This is the 1998 version, copyrighted. Supervisor, director of the Copyright Office. So what you have here is a definitive proof. They'll claim it's 8 pages of scribbled notes. Anybody can see it's 128. So that has all the matchups, all those tabs, everything that they lifted that felt was cool. They did a visual storyboard, it lifted it that way. But they blended the 2 pitched movies together, the Dream movie and the Immortals, and it ruined the story. They wanted the credit for every idea that they felt was revolutionary. Bonaventura, who I pitched it to, said it was revolutionary. He still claims here he discovered and shepherded the Matrix story. Yeah, he did. I pitched it to him.
No,
So what happened was he actually ran to a bank in New York and said, we got it. Now I'm flooding a lot of stuff right at the start, but I thought, let's hit the ground running.
Yep.
It ties into who I am and why I look and act the way I do. So basically they tied the things together. Why was I writing it? As a father, I was trying to reunite my family again, get my children back. Why is there a little girl in the story, and why do the Wachowskis say that she's just a subplot? Doesn't matter. Just a subplot, they say in their fan page. That's it. Well, of course, they're saying that because to me, it matters greatly. I was trying to reunite with my kids. So at the end, she's hugging, not the Oracle, she's hugging Neo, the character I designed after myself, that I could flesh out in a door opening piece, first piece, where I would know how the character would react and feel in layers. Back to childhood. So we jump back, what's going on? I'm not allowed to do music. I'm not allowed to play. Chores the way I create. So I create a whole nother world. I became fascinated by having any moment where it was peaceful. So if I went outside, I'd look at a blade of grass. I would study a blade of grass. I'd feel fortunate to be able to look at a blade of grass. And so it was like I would talk to the birds. I would sing. I would try to influence with animals. I started forming a connection with animals, believe it or not, where the animals that were wounded would seek me out. This happened at Colonial Williamsburg. I didn't share this on other platforms, but in Colonial Williamsburg, there was a wounded blue heron. It came up to about my waist. It was very tall, male blue heron. It was a crowded place, and Colonial Williamsburg, and up came this blue heron to me. I still remember looking at its eyes, looked up, it brushed on my right thigh and looked up, and it needed help. I knew that. People were taking pictures and it was jumping. I asked them to stop. Security came and they took care of it. It had a wounded wing. Same thing with the Grand Canyon. I went to the Grand Canyon. Now, there was a reason I'm telling you all this, and I think it fits our program here for your purposes. At the Grand Canyon, there's mule deer. I'd never known about mule deer before. Apparently, they can be aggressive. When I went to the Grand Canyon, I was like to go off on my own. I'd like to be away from crowds and was very shy. But I like to create a world where it might be better for people. 3 mule deer came out of the forest and surrounded me. They put around me, the main one, up against my right thigh. There's something about this, I don't know what it is. I still can feel touching its fur, and it was sort of greasy and smooth, but there's a greasiness to it. And the 3 mule deer were all sides of me. I noticed this with cats, like if they trust you, they'll come against you and they'll look out, right? There's also a winking process, what they'll do, where they'll slightly close their eyes, slightly close their eyes. If you as a human do not make any aggressive moves, they're showing that you can be trusted, and more your eyes will close. You join them and you'll all have your eyes closed, means that there's no danger. It's almost like a handshake. I've learned this. The sounds you can imitate, they do communicate with each other. Science just recently, not long ago, said we believe animals actually have feelings. Are you serious? Are we that far in the Stone Age?
Right?
Really? Yeah, it's because the idiots are leading our way. Sorry, but that's how I feel.
True.
They really are. They're the ones that get themselves through academia and get themselves in position by patting each other on the back and making sure they get to position. It's not about gifts. It's not about truth, compassion. No, that's out the door.
Right.
It's considered competition. I've heard someone talk recently that a study was done and it said that bullies are actually healthy for our society because bullies are the strong ones that rise to the top. That is not creating a healthy society. It is the quiet ones that are good. Yeah, the quiet ones that are good actually will lead the way if allowed that opportunity. But that's how twisted, our world is. So when I was with the mule deer at Grand Canyon, some tourists came up and started taking pictures again, and they bolted. This has happened time and time again. I've had birds land in my hand. I've had rabbits come up to me. I've had animals. So my friends used to joke that I was like St. Thomas or something, like or whether that one's dual animal Francis. They're like, you're like that, Tom. It's like, but I think there's an opportunity here for humanity to realize that we can connect with all life, and all life does value, and it has feeling, it has connection, is willing to connect. Before animals learned to be afraid of us, they were not. I'm not going to any sort of belief system here. I'm just saying that they used to be not afraid of us. When they went to the islands with the Anu or whatever it was, the large bird, flightless birds, they didn't run. They didn't run. Then they were slaughtered, but they didn't run. They didn't know fear of people. We've taught them that. We've taught each other to be afraid of each other, by and large. So basically, I wanted to write, work, and do art that would reach people, to bring people together. The Wachowskis claim that that's what they intended, to bring the people together, but they don't explain why. If anybody gets a chance, check out the Bound interview. Look at the Bound interview where the Wachowskis talk about Bound. Wachowskis Bound, put that in search, and look how they talk. Even ruining this idea of making females the protagonists and the heroes in the story. They're heroes in the original Matrix work, the Immortals, preceding the Matrix. We have the copyright, no copyright in the Matrix. So the Wachowskis in the Bound interview, you'll hear them just like slurring words and talking like they're drugged. And then they'll say, we wanted a sexy female protagonist. Yeah, that's for your own excitement.
Right.
You're not following what I intended. I intended to give honor to half our species that is often developing much more intelligent than men are and can lead the way. So it's kind of like still a boys' club in the world. And I think a lot of women don't realize that even the women's movement, men have played that like an organ. And now we've got Warner Brothers attorneys, Disney attorneys, Sony's attorneys, all these people that are using the justice system in the wrong way are using women to do the dirty work, women to make sure children are kept in cages. It's women being employed by the men. That's got to turn around. The firm that was thrown against me was a transgender firm, female, Linda Burrow, who was classmates with the attorney that he had to throw it. And ploy after ploy, trick after trick, no due process whatsoever. But we've got them in the long run here once the documentary is done. So who am I? Father with 2 dead sons, 1 living son. Many of us on your program, I know we suffered. And my heart goes out to every one of them. The reason I keep going is I wanted to stop. That no other parents go through this. The other side plays this. They want you to have despair. They'll call you and tell you after your children are murdered that they were murdered. But they don't want others to know that. They'll pay off your family to call you to say they weren't murdered after they've told you they were murdered. Because that's supposed to create despair too. No one will listen. They'll use phrases such as no one cares. No one's interested. Even though you wrote what became the Matrix, what became Oblivion, Elysium, everything. Bonaventura, when he got this screenplay, this man right here, he said it was revolutionary. That's why they call it Revolutions, the one series in Matrix trilogy. You know, that it was something like never seen before. So all the studios had a take on it. And I'll just cap this intro with this. What the studios did to make sure the work was taken was they copyrighted my title. I just want to go over this one more time here. Here's the Wachowskis under Assassins, Copyright Office, log, Wachowskis and Dina Laurentiis, Paradise Films. So the one that wined and dined them and promised them, you know, riches. And what did they also promise them? Beautiful women, as if they're cattle. That's one of the pitch sessions you get. Yeah, with the elite. They call themselves the elite. They want to refer to that call. So they do Assassins, they fail. There's no other subtitles on there, just Assassins. See that? Just Assassins. Dina Laurentiis, the one that wined and dined them and promised them everything when they had no body of work. So what happens next? Why are they being recruited by Dina Laurentiis? To be in a house to take the work. They take D players that failed. Here is, again, my title, The Immortals. The Immortals, you'll see all these subtitles. There's about 347 subtitles. No body of work, just subtitles being copyrighted. Not supposed to be able to do that. They own everything. There's Dina Laurentiis again, Paradise Films, under my title. No Wachowskis. That last entry is an investment firm claiming they created the Immortals. An investment firm?
Yeah.
And so these subtitles create slots of the Copyright Office they can stick my work into. They're not worried about the public. They'll handle the public with the media and make them believe that Tom Althouse is a fraud. They'll use shills and everything. Yet they've got my title copyrighted, the Copyright Office, no body of work. Now, when I show up and actually get my copyright on my full body of work, I had partial stuff and everything else. When I have the full body going on there, that's in 1996, February. I go to Hollywood in right after that, in April 1996, that's when Dina Laurentiis takes his name off the Immortals title. He takes it off. He keeps the subtitles, but he puts it under these other firms as a holding device. When I go to Hollywood, he's got a problem. He needs to make his move. So in 1996, when I'm in Hollywood, July 1996, performing at Will Gear Theater, the Immortals, subtitles. Now they're fully owned by multiple investment firms. Now it's just investment firms. So investment firms are claiming they created the material, that somehow they got a bug for writing, and they wrote these major screenplays that are blockbusters. How do investment firms do it? They now own the world. They do it all. They lend out money and they create work. So these largest investment firms in the world now can lend out my work, The Immortals, with these subtitles. Studios feel safe to take it because investment firms claim ownership. Studios feel safe to take it because there's all these slots with subtitles to cover their trail under The Immortals. The investment firms feel good to lend it out to anybody who wants to take it. They make money every time they do, giving the stolen work out. That's the racket. So what happens is Dean Laurentiis and Joel Silver, all of them, Bonaventura, Wachowskis, Warner Brothers, all want to do their take. They want me to know that my work was stolen. They send a honeypot wife who has a criminal record, who was actually incarcerated in jail in Modesto, California for prostitution, among other crimes. She's the one that approaches me like a nun, dresses the way I think I might like, looks the way, says the right words, even does little ritual things that I do that are like private jokes. Like, I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the things I do, I've never seen it done in the world, maybe somebody does, but it was a joke that I had where if you yawn, I would go, in your mouth. And it was annoying. I know, I did it as annoying. It was like this playful thing I did. Well, she did that to me right off the bat. I was yawning. She went, oh my God, I do that. I'm so sorry. Oh my God. And she's like, oh, really? So it's called mirroring. They do what you do. In unique things you do, unique quirks, they imitate it, they do it, they look the way you want, like they're casting a show. And suddenly you're going, oh my God, maybe this is meant to be. Oh my goodness, there's such synchronicities here. Oh, this must be from God. This must be from, whatever you want to call it. And next thing, they're asking you out. They're asking to marry you. So what happens is I find out afterwards, what's the last thing we do as a family after my son's born? We're on this earthly plane, right? What a thing to tell your son. The last thing we do is expunge your record. She won't show us the charges. We found out from another attorney from Disney. So she gets her record expunged at Modesto, California. Nothing said about the charges, all dropped, all warrants, everything. She had outstanding warrants the entire time we were married, 11 years.
Wow. So
last thing she does then is get with Mike Lang. Mike Lang of Disney and Miramax Films, put in place in 1993, when this very screenplay was submitted by this very man, James Boyd of Norfolk. How do we know 1993? Here's the submission letter. June 25th, 1993, straight to 4000 Warner Brother Lane. Diane Bellis, head of the story department, script, music, everything. And the receipt and tracking number that shows that it went. I am the author of the Matrix story. But you'll not know that. If you Google my name online, it'll say he lost his case, he lost his case, he lost his case, he lost his case. And that's all you're going to hear from TMZ to you name it, to Hollywood Reporter. The media, the motives, the six that own all the media is going to say that over and over to redundancy, to are sick. That's all you're going to hear. They're not going to tell you something interesting. The attorney they provided me, Tony Rankin on Maui, was my honeypot's landlord. The honeypot's landlord, that's right. And he was also the one that housed Terry Berliner, the Broadway director of Disney for Lion King and Beauty and the Beast, that came to Maui in 2005 when the honeypot wife was provided. Thank you, Tony Rankin, for housing them all and not letting me know. And came to me and wanted to be under contract with her for 3 years, Terry Berliner. So she put me in the New York Journal, upcoming playwright. Yeah, while you're being courted, you'll be treated well, and then the rug will be pulled. Well, what about Tony Rankin when he finally shows up when the honeypot wife wants him to show up? What about him? Ineligible to practice law, suspended license. The case is thrown immediately. When you go online and see the case was thrown, he lost his case, Tom Althouse was snowed by a, sorry, you say I can say what I want? Bastard.
Yeah.
A bastard, an absolute bastard who made sure it was thrown.
Yeah.
That's what happened. He actually told me that James Boyd, the submitting attorney, who has that affidavit, had nothing. He said he called him. I have the email. I called him and he has nothing, Tom. So you can't proceed with your case. It's over anyway, after he'd already railroaded us out of it a couple times. Well, I called James Boyd, he had everything. And that's where the affidavit comes from, everything. They also wanted this. This tape right here is very, very important. This cassette is worth gold. Why? Rankin on emails is saying, where is it? Where is it? The attorneys for Warner Brothers, his classmates from Berkeley, wanted it badly, because it's the submitting music. The submitting music that was sent with the piece in the heart-stopping scene that Neo, restarts the heart of Trinity. It's original work from us. Also, he wanted that badly. There's another piece on here too. George Michael praying for time. Why is that important? This original submission tape that James Boyd sent? Because George Michael was murdered. George Michael was murdered because he's in testimony. He would testify that he saw the script in 93. How do we know George Michael saw the work? Because the last page of the screenplay says George Michael praying for time. Final credits. That means this went in 93 with George Michael's permission because he saw the script and gave permission. That's why he was murdered on Christmas, where they say his heart gave out. They don't want any witnesses because this is worth $2 billion. So if George Michael was alive and was ready to testify, it defeats their whole strategy they came up with when George Michael was killed, which was Tom Althouse won't have any drafts preceding 1996, because that's the first time you see the Matrix title show up on a screenplay, because the Wachowskis blew it. The reason it didn't show up is all these titles under there, you're supposed to pick one of these. But the Wachowskis were mad over Assassins because they had to bring another writer in to finish it. They went all the way to the Writers Guild saying they want off Warner Brothers labels, out of the projects, off their names off. They wouldn't allow it. You're under contract. So what'd they do? They picked a title that wasn't on here. So in 1996, that's when Matrix shows up for the first time, because they're not picking one of those subtitles. Otherwise, it would have shown up earlier and they would have had their game. All that work done by Warner Brothers and Disney to set the stage, to make sure I'd be ripped off. The Wachowskis blew it because of their ego. But that's not all they did. You have share screen?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's share screen real quick. I'll pass it back to you in a second, but I want to show you what also the Wachowskis did. The Wachowskis were very angry, right? Very angry that the Assassins was finished by another writer and that they had to stay true to it. They didn't like that. So here we go. What are they doing? Susanna Bolgen, the graphic designer, says that anything for a split second in the films is for the Wachowskis' eyes only, director's eyes only, to keep it interesting. So what do? They're still very angry that the Assassins was finished by another writer. They wanted to be given the science project, they said. So they're given my work. They weren't their first choice. Wendy Wasserstein, who did Heidi Chronicles, was the first choice. There's an entry in the Copyright Office of says commissioned by Warner Brothers. Wendy Wasserstein, commissioned by Warner Brothers to write the Immortals. She was commissioned, a successful Jewish playwright. But the Wachowskis got their way by Joel Silver giving them an audition piece to prove to direct the suits they could direct. And in fact, in an article, they said in 95, we failed as writers in Hollywood. We'll have to pack our bags unless we're given something to direct. Joel Silver takes care of his, quote, boys. He gives them Bound to direct. And then the suits give them my work. They said in an article in 95 also, you did Assassins and Bound, what's next? Well, we have Plastic Man and Carnivore. Pause, it says on the transcript. We're hoping to be given the science project. If they had written it, they wouldn't be hoping to be given it. In fact, Teresa Wayne, who replaced Diane Bellis disappears. They made Diane Bellis erased from the world. You can't even find her online, basically. Diane Bellis was the head of the story department. James Boyd addressed that letter and sent it to. And she talked to me on the phone. She said, next time we talk, make sure you're protected. Well, the thing is that I didn't know she had been replaced by Teresa Wayne, who still presides today for the cover-up. Teresa Wayne claimed in testimony prior to me that Joel Silver's the only one that submitted in 94 after I got my work in 93. No Wachowskis, sans Wachowskis. They weren't in the picture. They didn't come out till 95. So it's Joel Silver who submitted my work to the story department in 94 solo, right? So what you have right here is a graphic, the first graphic ever to show up in the film, the first graphic they shot, the derogation scene. And this should be a bombshell. See how the page looks like it's turning, if you can see it? Looks like it's turning, right? It is turning. This is in for that fast, that split of a second. But what's on this page? Let's just go to a clearer version of it. I'll pull it up right here. Clearer version of that screenplay. Where are you? Where are you? Where'd you go? I'll try to find it here. Hold on a second, 1 second. Okay, I'm gonna go to the main matchup section. 1 second.
No, you're good.
Sorry to draw, that's out. I didn't mean to draw it out. Where are you? Where are you? Okay, I'm having a little goof here. Anyway, So let me just talk about this. I didn't want to just show this one, but maybe that's all I got right at the moment here for the moment. I got to shuffle through all these things. This, meanwhile, is Wendy Wasserstein. I'll just show you her picture real quick. That's Wendy Wasserstein. That's a Jewish playwright they were giving it to.
Looks like Harvey Weinstein's wife.
Yeah, doesn't it? She's now passed away. As far as the matchups, I'm so sorry I can't find that. I'm gonna call this up for now since I'm having trouble. That's not the right one. Okay, here, let's just go to this. I'll just talk you through it. Sorry, I'm not lining this up right here. What you're going to see here is you're going to see entries on purpose. First of all, here is let me flash out of share for just 1 second. See that? That's my high school diploma. We used to call it Central West High, Central Bucks West High, Central West High. See the West at the end? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what are the Wachowskis going to do with that? And I wrote because I thought audiences would be intelligent. Majority of the world is not intelligent. And it's really sad. It's very, very distressing to me because that's what I wrote for. People go, why would they be in there? Why would they research this? It's too much. They even say in Game of Thrones that the public will not understand too much evidence, too much information. Why? Don't we employ critical thinking? No. Wouldn't it mean something? If our child told us they saw a man, described it perfectly, what he carried, what he had it all by memory, would we say, no, it's not possible? Right. Let's go to share screen one more time and look at this thing. So Central West High right here. Central West Junior High, they tweak it. Central West, I think that's pretty telling. So that's my high school. Yeah. What Susanna Bolgen says is they stack entries. She says they get by the clearance department. There's a clearance department that checks all these things through. So that's quite a squeak through, right? They do Burger King into hamburger heaven. You know, they'll change it all the time. But here's Central West to Central West. And the other one is Owen Patterson High. Owen Patterson's the production manager. That was the joke they wanted to do. And Michelle McGahee, that's the art director as Neo's mom. The jokes are just stacked in here. Susanna Bolgen says the stacking is done so they can get the jokes through without them all being tweaked. John, Neo's dad, John's my dad's name. Thomas A, well, that goes without saying, that's me. Anderson is my Scottish clan name. You go to July 22nd. July 22nd, well, according to records in 1996 to 1999, my birthday was July 22nd. USA Insurance showed that. And what's very, very telling is look what happens. In Animatrix in 2003, that's 1999, the record's corrected. The Wachowskis take advantage of it. Look what you have here. You have my birthday exactly, July 2nd. But let's not stop there. Let's go the full yards, Wachowskis. 1959. 1 before the 60, 59. 7, 2, 59. Exact birthday. 4 past the 4 in red. Why? I was 44 in 2003. So let's ticket it cleverly there. These graphics are very expensive. This is a static shot in the Animatrix. It is a frozen shot. So you've got my exact birthday, my exact age right there, corrected by the Wachowskis from the original. Now look at the column. TA, 40, 99 in mirror image. They love mirror image. TA, Tom Althouse, was 40 in 99. 380. 380 is numerology. They claim they're into numerology. They just claim things. They don't have a brain for it. I'm sorry, they don't. 380, according to numerology, is that you will be giving up your most cherished possessions to prepare for your death. Well, that's pretty telling. To prepare for your death. So that thing's stacked with all those things. Now, they're not left alone in these things they're doing to me. They also have a comrade, a very vicious comrade. They refer to him in the business as Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg. So if we go to Steven Spielberg, what does Steven Spielberg stick in 2002? This. Tom Cruise plays Captain John Anderton. Starting to ring a bell? Anderton is Anderson with a T. Way to go, Spielberg. Let's make it even more clever. They're all about clever. John's my dad's name. Captain is his rank in the Navy. Captain, Navy, rank, and my dad. John, my dad's name. Anderton, our Scottish clan name with my T on it. Now, why is Tom Cruise guilty of pre-crime? Because he's going to commit murder. Why? Because his son was killed. What's his son's name? Sean. What's my son's name that was killed? Sean. Steven Spielberg puts this in after the Wachowskis does. And he's saying that Tom Cruise's character, my dad's name, my dad rank, my dad's Scottish clan name, and my son's name, who's going to be killed in the future, Spielberg knows about that. the whole plan, how to destroy the writer, and destroy is what they say. So he puts in a movie, pre-crime, guilty of pre-crime, you'll be 302'd, put away as a future mass murderer. That's what they have my family paid to say now.
What does 302 mean for those?
It means that you are going to shoot someone, that you are suicidal and dangerous. What did basically what was his name? Pat Robertson accused me of being dangerous and crazy with a gun when he approached me for his sex ring. And so he carried it through with my sister and my brother and anybody else that's bought by Disney. And who did they put with my sister to make sure she toes the line? They had to give her great rewards and honors, I was told by a contact on tape. Who did they give her to handle her? Who did they give her to handle her? Let's take a look. Let's go back here and find, they're not going to go small with my sister. They're not going to go small with my sister. Meet Brian Fitzpatrick, lifelong FBI operative from Hollywood and also U.S. Congressman from Pennsylvania, where my sister resides. He has now employed my sister where she gets black tie dinners. After attempted 302 number 5, where I was hauled off the middle night by SWAT team, my poor mom and dad saw it, my son too. My sister gets awards on the floor of Congress with her picture shown by this bastard, Fitzpatrick, who also is in charge of destabilizing the Ukraine. That's right. He was going there to make sure, and they have a cover article. They do cover articles for these guys, right? So when I came forward and started revealing stuff, cover article in the local paper. What's going on? We're going to cover for Brian Fitzpatrick, right? So what they do is they say that the FBI usually doesn't go overseas. No, they don't. But he's going overseas with Trudeau's man to destroy the life of Ukrainian Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin. They want him out of the way. Somebody who was one of Trump's connections. Yep. They want him out of the way and destroyed to make way for Ukraine's disaster they need to play off, the FBI needs to play off of. Yep. And benefit from. That's why there's problems in Ukraine. This man, Congress, FBI, think of it. An FBI operative as a congressman, lifelong. Does that make sense? What happened to our pillar system? Justice, executive branch, legislative. What happened? How come this man has 2 of them heading for 3 simultaneously? So what they do is they say that Shokin wasn't moving on the cases that existed. He wasn't pushing for reforms. That's the FBI's excuse for using this stooge that looks like a bad version of, what's the guy that rides the bike and tweets the horn? Pee Wee Herman?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also he kind of looks like Mr. Rogers, the bad Mr. Rogers, a bad version. So this man is making this whole article excusing what he's doing and saying why they're destroying him. Now, what did Trump say? Shokin was, quote, treated very badly. He was a very fair prosecutor. So go after him.
Well, yeah, if you actually listen back on the Biden stuff, he went after him too because he stood in the way of their $1 billion oil deal.
That's right. But you know what? How are you going to get around this man? Because you know what his title is? You know what he heads? The Anti-Corruption Department.
Oh, of course he does.
What is the Anti-Corruption Department? Are we talking about the Japanese Kemputai? Are we back to World War II again, where they come around and shut us down because our dog's barking too loud? They can do anything they want to us. This man has given my sister president of all psych people in Pennsylvania. She's not even licensed. She's not even licensed. She's an elementary school counselor who hands out drugs to kids, Ritalin, all the time. And that's her claim to fame. Who curls up on the ball of her office floor in a fetal position screaming because she hasn't destroyed her brother and wants her rewards. Brags about the trips she's going to get. She already got trips. In 1 year, she got to go to England, London. She got to go to the Caribbean, same place Trudeau went with that Arab yacht. You got going to San Francisco, everything. She's only an unlicensed elementary school counselor. She's got maid service. She was a spokesperson on CNN, owned by Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Also Jimmy Fallon show, black tie dinners from this guy, engraved invitations. This man is the biggest monster on our planet. It's always the man behind the curtain, behind the scenes, that is working the FBI connection with the Hollywood connection, with Congress. You've got the most powerful beings in the world. This man doesn't belong in office. And on it goes. That's me with one of their 302s, taken in by SWAT team. And my sister bragged that Secret Service would be after me, that Fitzpatrick's really hates you. He's going to put you away for life. Why? That's taxpayers' money. And what happens after they failed? Right after they failed that attack, with SWAT team telling neighbors, you buried it inside, you don't want to see this. What, you're going to shed blood? Fully body armored. You got body armor on, you've got cameras mounted, you've got automatic weapons. You are telling neighbors to get inside, you don't want to see it. And they're dragging me out of my house. For what? Because I wrote screenplays to help children? And this is what happened. So the next day, since SWAT team is given now to Warrington Township, they now have their own SWAT team and helicopters. So they decide to do a little flyover circus of our home the next day because they were pissed. So they sent 2 helicopters. You can see them coming now. 2 helicopters in perfect synchronization. There's the flagpole in my parents' house, flying over and over for 30 minutes over our house. It's rattling sabers. It's saying it's the gun on your head. It's the gun to your head. They're showing they can take you out anytime they want. This went on for 30 minutes in the morning after they failed the 302 attack.
So that's 2 circling.
See that? Lights, camera mounts, everything. Right over the house. Now, what do they have? Fitzpatrick gave deal,
all morning, actually.
The chief of police, who sends these SWAT teams, these cars all the time to our house, a brand new facility. The most expensive Warrington Township facility ever, the brand new police department with actually hotel facilities and a special consultation room built for the FBI. That's how this gets. Now, what happens? How does the FBI recruit these guys? You're sent to Quantico in Virginia, FBI training ground. You notice the demographic here? They all kind of look the same. All these middle-aged, out of shape. It doesn't look like a big stride there, does it? Little baby steppies there that they can manage with all the weight on them. So they're taking little baby steps down the road. And by doing this, they are being trained by the FBI, who they select the candidates. No, you can't just volunteer. You got to be selected. You need a high school equivalency to get in. A high school equivalency. That's really educated, FBI.
Yeah.
What do you get when you're done? Let's look at Daniel Friel. What does Daniel Friel get when he's done his little walk jog with his buddies? He's so proud of it. Right behind his head, the FBI yellow brick road. I'm not making this up. So this clown right here, who sends the SWAT teams, can't think to even pull his pants up after he goes to the bathroom, is sending SWAT teams, and look at a smug look on his face. And the thing he displays is the FBI emblem behind him. The only other thing you see online with his picture is this one. And again, he's so proud to be the thug who went to the FBI training academy. They don't train you, they buy your loyalty. And boy, did they buy it well. Besides SWAT teams, that new facility has everything, including, to make 302 stick, a psych ward. What you have is holding cells. Now what happens is when they come for you, they're not going to blow it this time. Since I got away 5 times, I haven't been guilty of anything. All my sister has to say is, oh yeah, Tom's going to shoot somebody. He's crazy, he's dangerous. I heard him say it. I would never say that to anybody. But she has to just say that, and Fitzpatrick does the rest, and she brags about it. Out they come to your home. Out they come. There is on Fox News. Out they come, and they haul you off. And now what they're doing is they're bringing the SWAT teams with the psych people so they can rubber stamp you away. It's like Guantanamo Bay for U.S. citizens. You don't stand a chance. In a matter of seconds, at gunpoint and on camera, your life is over. Rubber stamped, put you away, criminally insane, and they can raid your materials, take your scripts, take your boy away. My sister called ready to take Aiden. Well, no, she likes to have people next to the power. So she had another sibling call and say, actually a niece, call and say, she's going to take Aiden away from me. All pre-planned, all set up ahead of time with the different players, all rewarded really well. My cousin Todd Hilsey, after he did this, he modeled 3 different types of the most expensive Armani, you name it, clothing, Boss, you name it, modeled on his, they always brag, modeled on a page on his site, and talked about how he's going to have Supreme Court appearances now and everything. Instantly, right after the 302. Right after. That's right. That's how they play the game. So you can be shut away, any U.S. citizen, anybody. And they don't go for people that do crime. They go for the people that are trying to make a difference in our world, for the children and for a better world. That's what they did in World War II, Nazi Germany. They took away the professors, they took away the artists, they took away the people that were actually causing, culture, because they wanted to destabilize culture. They wanted to destabilize family. And that's why this whole transgender movement started. The firm that took me on, that was in the pocket with Rankin and these guys, was a transgender firm with Warner Brothers. Now I'll stop there. It's a lot to swallow. I'll send it over to you and I'll address questions as they come.
No, we often know too, and thank you for even sharing those clips and all that background information, just because we see that we're in a information war, and constantly the censorship and the tactics that we know is used against survivors and continuing to try to silence them, and just the gang stalking, and the list goes on. And as we all know, with censorship and how deep everything goes, and how it all intertwines. So with that, in Hollywood, even tied to the media and the big players and the elite, they own about 95% of the media. So when survivors and people come to speak out, you don't see it in the media, and it gets silenced, and these tactics are used against you guys, because God forbid it get out and the truth get out, because then now you're not only is it their ego, but also their reputation, and it takes down a lot of powerful people that people constantly look up to. And we've been programmed since such a young age. And so we have noticed that a lot of people are struggling with the research and trying to even fathom this level of evil happening, because of all of the psyops and all of the conspiracy theorists and every label that they put on it. So we appreciate you even joining us and the courage it takes to share your story, and for having you on our platform and share that background information, because obviously those who are watching and might be labeled conspiracy theorists or gone down rabbit holes, and we know the deep dives that people go down. So a question that I kind of want to go into with that, and as people try to silence the survivors, is obviously others have claimed to own the rights of the Matrix and Matrix franchise. So for our people listening on the other end who also remember Sophia Stewart, what is your take with that whole debacle? And obviously it's designed as a psyop from the truth of the story. So I just want to kind of get your opinion and your views on that, because constantly we see so much being silenced and so much thrown out there. Even in the world we're in right now, we constantly see psyop after psyop. So can I just get your take on that?
No problem. Yeah, in fact, I'll show you some more visuals. Sophia Stewart was assigned to me right from the beginning. Her number one guy is Nicholas Jackson. He was there at the start too. As soon as they wanted me to have my case when statute limitations were at the limit, that's when they made sure the honeypot wife let me see the images that would let me go, wait a minute, there's a girl pointing at the sun. Wait, there's a little girl at the train station. That let me knew it was being stolen. They wanted me to move because they wanted to provide their own attorney through her to make sure that the case was handled by them on the inside. And they joke about it. They said, I had no idea how much I was being screwed, that I was the rank was in their pocket, and I was worth 500 million at the time. They brag about that. So they controlled everything with that suspended license and stuff like that. Yeah. Who was the one that instituted his license and reinstated it? Linda Burrow, the transgender firm who works for Warner Brothers, who's also TMZ's attorney, who ran the article trashing me with the Wachowski's faces. Know Nothing hack, famous for nothing, that kind of thing. Sophia Stewart was employed to make sure the number one tactic to throw the case was put in place. That was that I wouldn't claim Matrix 1. The first thing she does, they like to, like my sister, have subordinates make the calls. They can show they're in power and they control people. I handle them. And so Sophia Stewart had Nicholas Jackson call me, and she had a little retinue there, a little group entourage on the phone. And so she's calling my number, and she's saying, you know, in the background, you hear her go, is that Tom? Is that Tom Althouse? She gets on, she goes, listen, your life is over as you know it. They love using that phrase. I hear this from different elite that approach you and offer you the chair and position. You know, you're one of the elite now. They like to say that. You know, she talks about how you are the missing link. They label you, stamp you. It's all planned ahead of time. You can claim 2 and 3. I'll claim 1. Well, the reason she says that is because they were worming it that if I went down the road the full miles, they would claim in a summary judgment, he didn't claim Matrix 1, therefore any matchups in Matrix 1 can't be claimed in 2 and 3. Therefore, we'll tell the public there's no matchups. What a setup. So let's look at Sophia Stewart. She calls me all the time. She did. So here's Sophia Stewart. Let's see the FBI one. Let's see. Here's what Nicholas Jackson, her number one, says. In-house witch for Warner Brothers to block you. She was like an Oprah. Heard on the phone when he was with her. Voices, possessed voices. Warner Brothers used an in-house witch. Witchcraft is real in Hollywood. They have in-house witches. She is from University of Southern California. Same place Joel Silver drew his woman director for, what was it? Alder Carbon, after he threw our case. Again, he's warning me about her, and then I'm going to get censored hard, like you talked about censoring. They know that you could do the malpractice. Here is her sending me a message where she's asking to be my friend on Facebook. But look what's next to it. So here she is at one point sending me this right here. And look at the company, the name of the company. All Eyes on Me Incorporated. These people who work as the controllers and the handlers have egos the size of Manhattan. That's what they bought. They're deep players who failed as writers, and therefore they're brought in and their egos go wild once they're given the power with the FBI in Hollywood. And so that's what happens to her. She gets an ego off the size of Manhattan. So she says, owner, writer, producer at All Eyes on Me Incorporated. Now, University of Southern California. Now, what's interesting is she tries to twist that later and say, when I said all eyes on me, I'm talking about God. No, you're not. You're talking about yourself. You made that clear earlier. Now, look at the sideboard here. This is her phone number. Try and use reverse psychology on me so I can help you and your publicity-seeking friend. Now, she's writing this at the same time to her number two, Nicholas Jackson. So she's sending me this sweet face, not sweet face, looks like a bulldog. But she's saying that, befriend me. While she's done all these things like call me, mock me about the death of my son, saying I killed my own sons because I'm in a cult, on and on she goes, laughing, mocking. She has a very crass way about her. She couldn't write something refined. She always is talking very, very crass. And she doesn't, again, the Wachowskis, D players. So she writes him, try and use reverse psychology on me so I can help you and your publicity-seeking friend. Often they accuse you of what they do, right? Seeking publicity. Same with my sister. Just pure ego and publicity. She's talking about herself. No thanks. You or Thomas will never accomplish anything. That fits the TMZ article with the Wachowskis. Famous for nothing. They use the same talking points, don't they? He is just a footnote, nothing else. I love that. Just a footnote. Famous for nothing. He's doing what the Wachowskis and their attorneys wanted. You teamed up with a loser from a cult. That's the real language I hear, right? Now, what's interesting is she changed it from I'm just a footnote in history. Now she says I am the evil one. They even created a whole section, this whole write-up section of prophecy where my birthday is listed as the son of light and darkness.
Well, even her image is the all-seeing eye. It's only half of her. Oh,
you're right. Face. You're right. And she calls her work the third eye.
Yep.
Interesting. So here's a summary judgment she lost. Her summary judgment was 65 pages long. Mine was thrown from the start, so it's only a page and a half. And they don't even acknowledge any of the evidence. This is my mom. So I'm just showing this here. That's my mom. That's the real mother of the Matrix right there. And we're very close now. Didn't matter about the upbringing. I always felt, that everybody has a chance. And she proved herself. She's caught in such hell for working with me now and supporting and helping. So that's the comparison there. Then you've got, what's interesting about this picture of Sophia Stewart is she's holding someone else's Academy Award or a prop. I think it's someone else to make it look like she won. I mean, come on. That's like, seriously. And then you've got this other one. Was this the one? Oh, okay. Wait a minute. There's the one where I was just looking for the one where she went off on me. They'll be sending you a doctor. Okay, listen to this one now. This is Sophia Stewart. They will be sending you to a doctor and will investigate you first. I come from a law enforcement family. This is right before the 302. So my sister's bragging that the Secret Service is going to come for me, and Sophia Stewart's bragging they're going to send the doctor. They had a doctor from China. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. A doctor from China named Zhang, who got on the monitor when I was hauled off by these guys, scared the trash out of my parents, made a big spectacle for the neighbors. And what neighbors going to think? He must be evil. Look at this. Oh my God, watch honey from the window. Something's happening here. They're sending everybody, SWAT teams, automatic weapons. Look at this. Police cars everywhere. He must be a criminal. That's how they paint it. So what happens when I'm there? The Secret Service come and they give me this doctor. They have to have 3 people's rubber stamp you. They have them planned ahead of time. The police officer that comes and does it, says that, yeah, he should be shut away. Well, that's the guy working for Fitzpatrick.
Based on
Then
what?
Yeah, I don't have to say anything. I'd be polite as a puppy, and it doesn't matter. And then you've got this Dr. Chang finally gets on the monitor. You're sitting there sweating it out. They like to make it sweat out. Secret Service walking around outside. And he gets on and he says this to me. What medication are you on? I'm like, I don't take medication. What medication are you taking? I'm not taking any. A Chinese psych doctor? Come on, people. Come on. Come on. China's not against the US and is not against Russia. They're all working together. They're putting on a puppet show. Russia and the US and the China billionaires have all agreed together. The elite have all agreed together. They're having brandy, cocktail, and cigars. They are not going against each other. They have all planned out to keep the public snowed and treat them like we're idiots. That's why they stick those information in there. Russia and China and America are not at odds. In fact, Robinoff from Warner Brothers was sent on a 30-film deal to where? China. There's no hostility between China, the US, and Russia. It's a puppet show. It's a puppet show, and the elite have their tickets punched.
Yep.
They want a one world society where they rule and have 1% sustainable planet, and the children will be used. If you're beautiful, you'll be brought in. They have a wet nerd dream and plan, and I was exposed to it when I was at Robertson's place. That's what's going on. And if you're not pretty, sorry, you didn't make the bill. That's why the train station scene is so important. Look at the train station scene. The original train station scene, the Wachowskis butchered it. They actually put the train man from Ghost in it because they're making it up as they go along with this script in hand. So they're filling in what they're familiar with. The ghost from Train Man does not further the story. That's just ripping that off. And Alice in Wonderland does not further the story. But the original train station scene, you have the liquid mirrors are the security devices. You have a crowd. It's a crowded scene. And people are pushing their kids forward to enter the program where they think it'll be for merit. Why is it that you only have a static Indian couple there? Because the Wachowskis were saving on the budget. They were supposed to save on the budget. It all makes sense when you understand. On the second page, a man is cut in half by those liquid mirrors because he's not in the program. You have to be in the program. When Neo is cut from the program, he can't pass through. So what happens is Trinity gets him through by dragging him through with her because she's still in the program. So they put it in Darling in the Franxx. Darling in the Franxx, the hottest anime right now, has that scene. My son showed me. He found this. Owned by who? University of Berkeley creates Crunchyroll. University of Berkeley is where the attorneys for Warner Brothers come from, and Anthony Rankin. Also, Warner Brothers owns Crunchyroll. University of Berkeley and Warner Brothers again, coming together. Small little world, art of war, tiny circle. So what happens then? Sony has been bought in. They were bailed out for The Great Gatsby. Joel Silver's prodigy, Greg Silverman, gets to be in charge of that deal and gets to steal the final work with Elysium. And everything's in there, everything. But Crunchyroll gets to do Darling in the Franxx, hottest anime. And in it, you see everything from erased memories, the rich have immortality, the poor use as pawns, and the lead girl is pulling the man through the liquid mirror gates, whatever, pulling her through. Everything is used. It's just lifted. And children are artificially created, and only the perfect ones are selected right from our screenplay, what the architect does. It's all here. So I have the misfortune of being an asset, star player on the bench. The only way they try to bring me in now is if I marry the woman they select for me. They use marriage as a way to control you. If I married the woman they sent lately, Stephanie Tanner, her brother-in-law is head Warner Brothers legal from Columbia University, Patrick. I'd be having Thanksgiving dinner with the man that stole my work. I'd be owned, stamped, and saddled.
Yep.
And I want to point out too, as he was showing the text messages and everything going back and forth, those are different tactics you often hear us talking about throughout not only Emma's podcast, but our podcast as well, when it comes to gang stalking and the different tactics that are used and threatened to try to put fear into the survivors, as well as handlers often change in the elite in Hollywood. You will see that. You'll see a lot of it is arranged, no different than how he just said marriages. The celebrity couples you think are really married and all of that, it's all set up. You're watching a puppet show. So just know that when you're going through deep dives, if those of you who are listening, if this episode is a lot for you, go back and watch previous episodes, because this information in this specific podcast will contain a lot of different terminology that if you're just now learning about trafficking and the different rabbit holes of Hollywood, you're going to want to go back and learn the terminology, or go to our website at www.standbysurvivors.com. And we break down the terminology on there, especially when we talk about handlers and MK Ultra and programming and SRA for satanic ritual abuse. You'll hear different terminology used throughout this episode. So I just want to throw that out there. If this is already too much information for you, hit pause, go back and learn the terminology, and then come back to this episode.
And one of the episodes, this happens a lot with our moms who have lost their kids. So for example, one right off the bat, same kind of situation is Lizzie Harding that we've had on and that Emma's had on. And she had the same thing where they continuously try to call her crazy. And this is why we're taking your kids. And of course you wouldn't believe. And as believers and truth tellers ourselves, we oftentimes get people in our DMs or messaging us or doing whatever, saying, you can't believe this mom, she's a bad person. You can't believe this person, they're bad. You can't believe what they're saying. I have proof that they are this, that, and the other thing. And Emma gets it a lot. And she's invited these people on, is like, all right, come on and you tell your story. They don't have a story to tell. They don't want to have a story. They just want to get into the ears of people who haven't dug as much, who just want to hear, see, I told you that person wasn't real. And again, my thought on all of this is, if your story wasn't real, if you really were not the true author, why would they even give two shits about what you were doing? They wouldn't be chasing you down. They wouldn't be murdering your kids. They wouldn't be giving you wives to marry. They wouldn't care about you. You would disappear, because they could prove that what you're saying is not true. The fact that they can't is why they're doing all of this. And so I want our listeners to really think about that they're putting in a heck of a lot of information and a heck of a lot of money and time and effort for something that is supposedly quote unquote untrue.
Very good point. Why would they put all the high school and all that stuff in that initial graphic? And then they try to get the public, they'll even try to twist that. Anything you catch them on, they'll try to twist out of it. Cover articles with the media is a main tactic, like we saw with Fitzpatrick. This is done all the time with celebrities too. We'll talk about Keanu Reeves, and so there'll be this whole PR push for Keanu Reeves. They are deadly afraid of this. And it's like, I felt a man of responsibility because they came to me so many times trying to recruit me. And the thing is that, I'm supposed to be the face of the Christian Coalition. The thing is, I was tested as top 1% for intellect in this country. And it's pretty amazing. I thought, oh my God, this must be a dumb country if I'm the top 1%. But the thing is that's what they tested. Tremendous empathy, they said. I've got awards for my work. They're drunk on my work and want to use up the rest of the story, Joel Silver said. So I'm in a position to really draw them out. And what happened then in that case is they're actually offering you positions while they're trying to stab you at the same time. And they take your kids, kill your kids, take your daughter to try to make you pliable, to break you like you're bleeding a bear. And so what happens is I don't have a choice. I've got to see this through. And thank goodness for you both and for, Emma and others that step forward. And God bless you all, because the public is then supposed to give in this little surface platter of talking points. We've heard the news media say it all the time, terror, 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 terror. The thing is, for me, it's supposed to be crazy, dangerous. They have shills that'll wait for the last comment and come on and go, he dyes his hair. I don't dye my hair. What does it matter if I did or didn't?
Even if you do, yeah.
What's the deal? It's supposed to be any kind of shallow surface thing to throw people off. He's reading from a script. No, I'm not. How could I prepare for this? There's no way. How many pages would be on my wall for everything I just said, right? And my eyes aren't scrolling. But that's one of the things Sophia Stewart was supposed to accuse. They even accused that my son's not real and doesn't exist, that I made him up, my last surviving son, because they're deadly afraid, including the bought-off family members, that he's going to say, my dad's a good guy. Well, go to redpillrising.org and check out the video he made, A Father's Journey, and you'll see what he thinks of his daddy, And they're saying, I'm a bad father now. Watch these people that are bought. I'm just saying this not to complain. I'm saying to illustrate that they buy off these people that are saying, I'm your biggest fan. Number one, you keep going. Don't ever stop. I'll safeguard evidence for you. Here comes FBI Fitzpatrick. The playbook is to, maybe people will be familiar with this, cut you off. They're supposed to cut you off without a word. We call them anonymouses. So you're left in despair. It's supposed to be like, where's this person we're going to have to dinner with, or we're going to be hanging out, or a family? 2 years of absence, my sister did. Then they wait for the right moment to hit you. What happened after 2 years of absence? My son Sean was murdered, and I'm told he's murdered. So what does Julia Zarko do? She calls me on the day he dies. What am I expecting? What am I expecting, right? I'm expecting condolences. What am I saying on the phone? Oh my God, Julie, I'm so glad you called. What am I greeted with? A very cold, heartless voice going, Tom, your sister, you have to say you're angry. Say it back to me. And you hear a man in the background whispering. She's supposed to be at school, at elementary school? That's a male voice. And what are you doing saying these terrible things in front of children in elementary school? Why are you getting awards for top president, like president of psych people in Pennsylvania, top psych person in Pennsylvania? Why are you considered such a celebrity? They let everything go. And that always happens. These people are given sort of celebrity status, and everything they do, from pedophiles, you name it, to drugging kids, is excused because that's our celebrity. So they can do whatever they want. They do some good. That's the cover excuse. That's why this doesn't change. It takes the public to catch on. And so she calls me and she says, with a man whispering, it goes like this. Tom, you have to say you're angry, and you're bipolar. What? Where'd that come from, left field? Suicidal. Say it back to me. Julie, why are you doing this? Sean just died. I thought you were calling for condolences. Say it back to me. If you don't say it back to me, we can't have a relationship. Julie, we haven't spoken in 2 years. I'm just playing it out here. This is paraphrase. We can play it out so people can get it. Then she says, if you don't say it, you're saying I don't matter. I said, Julie, it broke my heart. Julie, if those are the parameters, you don't matter.
Yeah.
And I recorded it. I recorded it when she started bashing like that, and I heard the really bad things going on. I knew what was going on. I knew what was going on because I was run down by a car earlier before Sean was killed. Sean had made a phone call to me and Aiden saying, Dad, be safe, be careful. A car tried to run me down. And so he knows to drive safe. He's mild mannered, drive safe anyway. And so it's like he's telling me, drive safe, Dad, drive safe. And he said, Aiden and I are going to create the work together. We're going to do a film. What does Sophia Stewart chime in at this point? If she's watching this program, she would say, look, he has no feelings about his son. He doesn't care about his son dying. No feelings whatsoever. They'll throw anything. I think the survivors out there know they'll throw anything at you. Talking points such as delusional. They love the word delusional. Oh my God. It's like my sister feels so intelligent because she throws that word around like candy. Delusional, 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 delusional. So after I said I wouldn't say it, she contacted family members and said I called her all the time and said that I was suicidal and going to kill my son. Thank you very much, Julia Zarko. What a role model for children in elementary school.
Right.
Fitzpatrick stooge. And she says she's never going to stop. When I showed her the diagnosis that I got done, just it said tremendous empathy, genius, all that stuff, she tore it up. She tore it up and raged. And she raged like this at a family gathering. So that's one of the last times I saw her. She raged and said, everybody loves me. Nobody hates me. Everybody loves me. She went into a manic bipolar. But she's rewarded on the floor of Congress. She's president of the psych people in Pennsylvania. They cover for her. Top psych person, unlicensed. Then she goes, no child's afraid of me. Every child loves me. No fraud. That's delusional.
Right.
That's
that tells me you're
delusional.
lying, and that's not the truth.
And the other one they say, it's all lies. Okay. If she saw this program or either Sophia Stewart, they're going to say it's all lies. How much of this they're going to categorize everything I've shown you as a lie? It's all lies. That's their take on audiences, that they're not going to pay attention to critical thinking. Check out redpillrising.org. Check out the things. They're not going to. Yeah. In fact, one of their main players out in California got a hold of me through another main player who works with the FBI and CIA. And they had me send my script. I'm not going to do this ever again. I told another host I really love, I said, I'm not sending the full script anymore. Never. I'm going to show you all these matchups, and we're saving it for the public because they don't want it to be shown where the public discovers it and comes to it. They don't want people to come. They want it something like a stand-up comedian seeing the jokes ahead of time. No one's going to listen. So what we do is we show the parts that show we would have won, some of the main ones, and we let the audience have the experience what was intended all along. So we send out the script to this person in California who's working with the CIA, FBI. And she has the audacity to tell me, I point out the train station scene, things like this. I don't see it. I said, you don't see the train station scene I isolated on page 54? No. It's right there in front of you. Page 50. Oh, look at 54. Yeah, I don't
Can
see
you
it.
read?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how they play. And in the movies, you often think, and I think a lot of survivors will understand this too. In the movies, it's so low class. What they do is they go, I've got the tape. Oh, I've got the tape. Oh my gosh, I'm going to rush to the studios and play this tape. And now we've got them. Roll the credits. We won. If you've got this, they're going to come at you hell and high water with everything they've got to make sure it just pisses them off when you have evidence. You cannot go to the other side and say, I've got the evidence. Don't do it. That's like being Kevin Spacey in Pulp Fiction or whatever it was. You cannot go, or LA Confidential, you cannot go to them and say, I got the evidence. They mock that. It's not going to work. Or if you're that poor misfortunate FBI agent who decided to run and tell and got shot in his car, shot in the head in his van, pulled over by other operatives, pulled out and shot in the head, and they said he pulled a gun. He's in full view on the video being laid on the ground and shot in the head. He is not in any position to be defending himself or a threat to anyone. But that's how they work it. They say they'll destroy you. The key for survivors is people like yourself, you guys like Emma. What you've done is you gave us a voice. Aiden's the one that told me that, my last surviving son, 15 years old. And they had told me, we know you're concerned for your last son's safety. And these cars are pulling up to show that they can get you anytime. The police allow the cars to pull up in front of your domicile. It's always a certain sign of the cars. They'll take pictures of your son. They'll take pictures of your mailbox. They'll target your place. They'll chase you down. And they're allowed to by the police department, by that man I showed you.
Yep.
You know, he allows that to happen. And they'll tell neighbors that call in, they're not doing anything wrong. Really?
Yeah, it's honestly so true. We had a situation in Arizona, and that's the first time we've ever really experienced that together when we were leading a march and we didn't know what to do.
Mhm.
As we often talk about it, yes, we see it from a survivor standpoint, but when you're literally in that moment and you go into that the freeze flight mode and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Mhm.
And now you're at stake, your family, and the person's within 15 minutes of your house. And then you have people that you don't know blowing up your cell phone and the threats and all of that. When you call and you report it to the police, it's pointless. They literally, for those of you, I'm not saying if you're in a situation, yes, please call local police, get emergency involved. But from our experience, when we were in that moment, when we had to make that call, it was pretty much, well, we can't do anything. Why are you calling? Once we told them we had a human trafficking podcast and why we were being targeted and we were advocates, it made it worse. We were better off not saying that. And luckily, we both happened to be on the phone at the same time. And once they saw both of the reports, then they were like, oh, and they took it a little bit more serious. But then even then, we then would have to give like access to our cell phone and all of that. And we're like, we're not doing all of that. And so even those moments of us going through that part ourselves, we are like, this is why survivors don't call.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pointless because it was like we would have to do all the work, but they literally told us, unless they're physically, it's not considered game stalking, it's not considered harassment, unless they physically harm you and put hands on you or you're in danger and threatening to kill you, then they can do something.
Yeah, that's what happened to us. Like I was at the house, my parents' house, and one of the cars pulled up again. And the guy here's another tactic. He started shouting, who are you? Who are you? And it makes the neighborhood, I realized later, it makes the neighborhood think that you're the aggressor. You're something wrong. I was just in my yard on the phone, in my very yard. And they pull up and start yelling, who are you? Who are you?
Yeah.
Like, that makes it sound like they're reacting to something I did. When Aiden and his friend were there for the first time, we were in Pennsylvania. And keep in mind, my sister kept saying, don't take him in, don't take him in. I went to caretake my parents. Don't, he's evil, he's evil. Oh my God, we got these things on tape. Aiden and his friend go for a walk. The first time. This is after the guy who was right down the street had taken the picture of the mailbox and him, and Aiden told me about this, using a snowblower for cover. Here's another tactic, another cover plausible deniability thing. And so he goes out in this black car with 4 guys in it, follows him, starts screaming, effing, chasing, gonna kill you, kind of thing. And he runs through the thorns back to the house. And the car had the audacity to pull up front again and idle. So we call the police, and I tell Aiden, don't you worry, you're a friend. It was both shaken. You know, people talk to the police, everything should be fine. I'm trying to be the right guy, father. We go out, the police guy says, we're not gonna do anything about it. They're just kids having fun. They were not kids. The tinted glass is against code, everything. The neighbor to my mom named Tom, he's part of the mafia group. And so they all come to him for orders. There's 11 families that come to him in order that were set there for us to appear there to work us. And they came after me on the golf course. 2 guys and the dog, friends of him, they all come back to him for orders. The police always come, we're not gonna do anything about it. You know, you can make calls, we're not gonna do anything about it. So
That's exactly like what happened with Emma, and her car was broken into, and 3 owls, one with the checkerboard Masonic, the flooring was put on one of the owls, and literally the female officer basically asked her if she wanted them, or they would take them to the office to see if somebody left them, like a kid or something. It's like, you don't just leave 3 and break into a car and like ransack it and go through her whole car.
They're big on that imagery. They're big on that imagery. They left 2 dead birds. I have a picture of the one. No, the other. I think it was a blackbird, a blackbird raven or something, dead on my porch, like laid just right in front of the porch here, nicely laid out. No wound marks, anything. Like somebody just went and laid it. At the same time, another copyright holder, Frida Babson, thousands miles away, has 2 birds laid out directly on her porch at the exact same time. And we found out, and we looked it up, and like, what is the meaning? Because they always have their meaning. They always want to be clever. Apparently, the meaning of the blackbird laid out in front of your entrance is that you have survived impossible odds. It's a nod and tribute to you that you have been a brave warrior and stood up in terrible odds. It doesn't stop the war. It's simply a salute. It's kind of like what happened in the Zulu War with the British regiment or detachment that was surrounded by Zulu. They give you a honor tribute and then back to getting it. And these guys do this. You know, one of the attorneys that was the worst ones that's involved in child trafficking, he had told me at one point after bashing and doing perjury, saying I was going to kill him in testimony and things like, I'm like, I didn't say anything. He's the one who called me an asshole and things like that. But he puts it as if I'm the one that did it. He actually came up to me at one point when we're off camera, goes like, you're actually really a cool guy. We're actually fans of your work. Then back to it.
Well, and I think that's frustrating too, because we often see, especially when you get into MK Ultra, you see a lot of the alters and things can trigger them at any moment. So going into that, and as well as survivors, there's often a lot of gaslighting. And as they continue to try to be silenced. For any other parents who have lost children, whether it's through the courts and seeking justice, as well as speaking the truth and educating the public, and even through death, how and what are some advice that you could offer those listening? Because we have a lot of survivors who are currently one, going against the corrupt system, as well as a lot of mothers and fathers fighting for their children against CPS and the trafficking. So what keeps you going, and what would be some words that you would say to all the parents if you could give any advice to those out there fighting the corrupt system? As we know, it's such a intertwined, huge trafficking ring.
Right. If you're a person of interest, make sure you don't use the courts. If at all possible, stay away from the courts. That is big business's playground now. What they do is they'll own the judges. What they'll do is they call it a lottery. And they show it in Game of Thrones. Like they'll say that they just pick the judges randomly. They do not pick the judges randomly. They pick the one that fits their bill most, that fits the favor. There's a guy named Rusty Krabs out in California, out in Hollywood. Rusty Krabs, he's in charge of child trafficking, along with this Judge Doyle that was put in charge of me. And these other guys that are racketing the system into Spokane, Washington, and Seattle, and things like this in San Francisco. What you have is these judges are the go-to judges for the main blows and throws. And in fact, the judge in our case, Gary Klausner, the Michel case, was appointed by Bush, first appointment to California, and also with his dream team, which is Bush's Law and Justice Center, or Robertson's Law and Justice Center. Robertson formed it to get conservative judges in to make conservative decisions so he will no longer be a second-class citizen. Those are the quotes with it. So he's making sure that what he means conservative decisions is decisions he wants. To counter the liberal ones, that's the excuse, cover excuse. First advice I would give is stay clear of the courts, or if they suggest a venue, go to a different one if possible. Do not go to the venue they select if the powers to be that you do not feel comfortable are trying to steer the game. Do not let them pick the venue. See what your options are. That's first of all. Next thing is make sure you have people you trust, professionals that are standby on call to be there for you, to testify that you're a good parent, that the child's stable, that the child has his needs met, because they're going to keep throwing, like my sister did over and over, child services, child services, child services, child services, and they don't have a choice. They have to come out, even though they're saying, like I got a letter that said, another bogus claim by them. They're going to, what they do is they look for anybody you're closest to turn them in the game I've been playing. They get the closest one, your closest loved ones, your pillars, they call it. And so make sure that you are solid with who your circle is. Keep your circle small, tight, and informed. They use rewards and honors in order to turn people, and you'd be surprised how people do that. If anybody shows you the flag of being interested in wanting to be rich or have the beautiful home and with the shortcut to fame, and especially the word success or power, beware. That means they are shopping. They're ready for the sell you out price tag. So that's something to really watch for. Another thing is do not be silent. If something happens to you, broadcast it. Make sure it's known. Make sure the other players know it's known. That's the one thing they are afraid of. Now they'll try to send you a bunch of things to rattle you that they want you to report on. They'll have people come your way that say, I just had the same thing that says nonsense, like they're Trident or they're, Poseidon, or they're somebody who's like, I am JFK's son and I was thrown off an aircraft carrier. I actually heard these things. They're trying to send people who are pretending to be crazy your way as if they're survivor imitators. And what they do is they get you in and you're guilty by association. And that could jeopardize your relationships also with your children. So you have to be very careful about, watch for the flags. And if they say something, even if you have a heart feeling for them and you think, okay, I'm going to comfort this person. If they start going to crazy town in their talk, you've got to get free of it for the sake of your children, because that is the device often employed to make you crazy by association and to take up your time. These people are used to take up your time. Long phone calls, texts that never end. You might even say, please stop. This isn't helping things. I got things to do. And the texts keep coming, keep coming. Downloads, they call them drops and things like this. Just keep coming, keep coming. That is a person who's supposed to take up your time, most likely. They are paid to do it so that you don't have your real circle tending to you. What you can do ahead of time for safety, if you're not in a situation yet, is find firms that you trust. Get a working relationship with them and learn who you can trust. Doctor, attorney, even dentist with your kids. Make sure these are people who identify with your story, your particular situation, and have a heart for you and your family and you for them. So that's very, very important. I had a dentist out in California who did this like couple $1,000s work on me. And he said, Tom, it's on the house. You wrote Matrix, it saved my life. I mean, my life turned when your movie came out, even the ripped off version. So I'm doing this all free. It's like do what they don't want. Let your story be known. When I say they, I mean the players involved in this that are on the other side of this. And they're linked. This is FBI, Hollywood, Pat Robertson's Religious Right, if you're not aware of it yet. Disney mainly, and Warner Bros. And Universal Studios, with Sony now brought in mainly. Miramax Films, Film Tracks, Congress, FBI, CIA, NSA, they're all in it. These are all connected. Why? There is plans for a one world society. They say it's inevitable. And who's going to lead that? I got it right in the screenplay. The CIA will be the governing body of the one world order, and they'll call it Central. That's why it's in my screenplay. So right now, those that are doing all kinds of harm to us are drunk with power. What's happening to our police force? Our police force is being given contracts and being conditioned, police officers and sheriff's department, conditioned to respond to rewards like Pavlov's dog. It's happening right now. I was in line at Sports Academy recently, sheriff's department guy in front of me, struck up a conversation, very pleasant. He told me how he is going to make $150,000 in 6 months due to contracts coming through the sheriff's department to do private work for business and corporations. What they do is they buy up the people that are supposed to help you. give them lucrative contracts and deals like that. And boy, are they living it high in the hog. It needs to be that way. Robertson takes Virginia police and brings them in to be security guards back and forth. They get more money with him and prestige and honors. And again, they don't need an education. The head of Robertson's
It's probably better if you don't, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
You see it in big pharma. You see where all of the students, they're already up there with no education. They're already literally in the emergency rooms and because of the understaffed and all that. But you see all the contract work. You see the traveling nurses who were on contract and getting paid double, if not triple, the amount of your local family friend who's had that career in that hospital for years.
A lot of that is buying the loyalty. A lot of this is really the real reason behind all that talk that they're giving us is loyalty. They wanted loyalty. That's it. So they figured those that would be more desperate for it would be more loyal to put their feelings in the freezer, they call it, and do dirty work to gain. Who would ever thought my sister would want to destroy her brother? She just killed my dad, starved him to death. 40 days it took to starve him as his POA, snuck in a POA thing so that, and he was begging her, Julie, let me go home. I want to go home. I want to talk to Tom. I want to go home. I want to see Tom. I want to go home. I want to have something to eat. So she drugged him with anxiety medicine and also something else that just knocked him out so he couldn't even talk. Last time I talked to him, after the medication, the day after the medication was applied, he was like, Tom, I love you. And Julie's like, get him off the phone. Not supposed to be a witness. And then Julie, after she starved him to death, drugged him and he starved to death in tears, goes on her Facebook page and says, my dad thanked me for my health care. Monster. Murdered my dad. No remorse. You'll see in these people, there'll be no remorse. It's all about rewards, power, honor. She had told me she's not gonna be a peacemaker anymore. She's about power and success. Watch out for those words, power and success.
And that's what they've created in our world. Like everybody wants something. They want another like, they want another share, they want another whatever. So even at the littlest level, you'll buy or do whatever they say just to get that minor reward.
That's right. And so I'm supposed to be a warning. Others like me, a warning. They poured it all on me. I mean, look at they went so far as the two sons, the daughter, everything else. And Pat Robertson was the girl that said he had a social worker who was reprogramming my kids to think I was narcissist and evil and stuff. They went through sessions. In fact, Kirk, who was drowned in a lap pool at 26 years old, expert swimmer diver, drowned in a lap pool on a military base. Yeah, that's how they killed him. They killed him that way because it's a Masonic death. Die in the shallows, a cable length from shore, disemboweled. Die in the shallows. They did that on purpose. How was Sean killed? Sean was killed by a snowplow. Then they called me and the contact had called me and said it was X-Files. So what happens is they snowplow and X-Files. They're doing the movie scenes to make it sure that you know and to tell you know, but the public and your sister and cousin and brother are going to say, he just died naturally. Yeah, on a military base, a lifeguard's going to leave him, let the guy drown on a military base. Oh, I got a painter in the pool. I'll just go off here and yeah, just drown. I'll be back in a while if you're dead. They don't do that. Stars and Stripes said they did an investigative article. They did not. They think the public's never going to look into it, never, and they're both cremated. So the thing is that that's how they play their game. And in my screenplay, the main witness is cremated. They just keep imitating art and put you in your own life film is what they brag and say. So what's happening here is now if I'm supposed to be destroyed and dead and know all these things and have been thanks to interviews and now the documentary team making the documentary, and they're amazing too, like you guys, it's going to go forward. Like Emma, it's going to go forward. And so now they have a real problem because I'm supposed to be gone. I'm supposed to be gone. How many times have they went for it from Robertson up to my sister saying, he's crazy and dangerous with a gun, that kind of stuff. Even approached the clinician that made the report that said, 12 weeks of a report just so we could counter it. That's why I win. I know I was okay. And they said, yeah, I guess PTSD effects, official report. After that, she's approached by Brian Fitzpatrick and Julia Zarco. What happens after she's approached? Vacations, she never meets me again, but what does she write? What does she write after telling me? This is Caitlin Farrell of Sanctuary in Pennsylvania. What do they write? They write that I am everything under the sun. After she told me there's no way you were paranoid schizophrenic, it's a Hollywood term. Robertson's wrong, Hollywood's wrong, you're nothing like that. Then she turns around and goes, you're schizophrenic with a paranoid tendency, you're bipolar 1 and 2, because as my sister put it in a shopping list of everything I am, off the charts. In time for Christmas, well, they take away my New York jobs contacted, that had lucrative jobs in New York, all gone. At the same time, psych people turned. And now it's a 302, child services called, everybody's called, child center for the elderly, everybody's called, Fitzpatrick's got his heyday, shopping list in. And get this, to counter that 12-week report that was official and done, and Caitlin Farrell is sitting next to me, this young girl going like, I'm so proud of you for what you've done, Tom. I believe you. I know your story. And I said to Caitlin, I need someone to trust me and believe me. She says, I'm that person. I've heard your whole story. I believe it. So we no longer have a contact. We never talk again, never see each other again. But then there's this handwritten report, a handwritten scribbled report in cursive that says I'm everything under the sun, when the official report is documented that says I'm not and said it would cover me. Plus, I filled out a thing that said I have an affirmation of life. She suggested it. Affirmation of life that I've never heard anybody, and even Aiden. So that will help protect you too, Tom, right? Yeah. So they're the ones that helped me fill it. They never gave it to me. In fact, when I finally pushed to have it through an attorney, they blacked out Aiden's name because they don't want to be implicated for doing false federal reports for my sister and the FBI. And when my mom went with me down to Sanctuary, right? Because we're supposed to go down to fill out a form for, she was going to help us fill out a form. And they cite my mom and I for criminal trespassing. We step into the office and there's police everywhere on us. We were coming down for the form and to see about the disadvantage, whatever thing where you can't work, disability. Oh, yeah. And so why is my mom gonna be in charge for criminal trespassing? We weren't told. That is a Pat Robertson tactic. That's what he did. So their Sanctuary is doing it. Sanctuary was bought and sold. The only thing I heard from Caitlin Farrell, and what's the rewards? Vacation, time off, star player on the remodeled website. Always the remodeled website pops up right away. You see it all the time with these spy offs, right? Remodeled kitchens, you name it. So the only thing I heard her do was scream and yell when I had showed up with my mom, I came down for the one appointment. I was scheduled for an appointment, right? But she had been approached. She's not supposed to see me. Remember that phrase that you say, you're not supposed to talk to the target, right? Not supposed to contact or see him again, otherwise you're gonna be in trouble. So she doesn't come out and see me. She doesn't come out and see me. She just screams from the room, and I just figure, okay, I'll go. No one fills me in what's going on. And I come back later with my mom another day to see about another appointment, and we're criminal trespassing. No one told us anything. Handwritten things saying everything from bipolar 1 and 2. My sister got her licks in there. Robertson got his, crazy with a gun, schizophrenic. What's really wild is paranoid schizophrenic is what Robertson was pushing from the very beginning, and he failed. It didn't stick anymore. He really wanted it. He wanted it to stick. So what happens is Caitlin Farrell, during the thing, like I said, she says, there's no way you're any of these things, Tom. You're not paranoid schizophrenic. You're not schizophrenic or paranoid. And she explained in Hollywood, paranoid schizophrenic is a Hollywood term. It doesn't really exist in the psych field, along with crazy. So after she's bought, we don't even talk. After it's great, honor to meet you, and everything's great, we got our report. Then I see this handwritten thing saying schizophrenic with paranoid tendencies. Way to go, Caitlin Farrell. Way to give Robertson finally what he wanted.
Right.
Unbelievable. I'm so disappointed in people I trusted. With my son's life too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. The public needs to stand up. We need to lift each other, and we can't let these things happen anymore. Germany was able to do what it did during the Nazi era because everybody thought it's not happening to me, basically. I think that's seriously the nutshell we agree on, that people thought, well, it's not happening to me. And then their neighbors go, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's the wildest part for me, like doing all of these podcast episodes and talking about it and all this stuff. People don't want to be responsible for having to stand up and learn this stuff. But at the same time, people that are high level church people that you assume are really good people, like God has them, right? Mm-hmm. They're never going to do this. They would never hurt anybody. If they're hurting people and they're getting away with it, how does someone like myself even deal with any of that? Because again, you don't even know where to step at that point, because they are literally doing whatever they want.
That's right.
Whenever they want, to whomever they want.
That's right. Robertson actually tells us in his circles that we're increasing the power of grace the more we sin. The more we do evil, it makes Jesus weep, but we're increasing the power of that grace because we've been chosen in the womb. He's actually used the scripture, something about knitted in the womb.
Yep.
He knew us and knitted us. He chose us while he didn't choose the others. The others are fodder and fair game for us outside Robertson's organization because they're not part of organization. He even says every Christian circle from his is not right. He's the only one on the planet that tells the truth. That's a cult. And then he
Yeah.
says that, the women are secondary. They're supposed to be subservient to the men. That's twisted. And then you've got the idea that the children under that, you've got suicides, all kinds of stuff going on at Robertson Organization. 50% attrition rate, falling out of students not succeeding. I was the exception, being grafted to be the face of the Christian Coalition. Be Pat Robertson's boy was what it was. Sex rings operating all around the circle there. And it's like they believe that they answer to a higher authority than the government and even said that when Congress summoned him, he said that we answer to a higher authority through his son, Tim, in the Philadelphia Inquirer article. So he feels that that we're chosen, others are not. And he even has this thing that he teaches, that the real reason for CBN University, now Regent University, ruling in place of God, he thinks he's supposed to rule in place of God, is that it brings beautiful models together with Christian men. That's it. Remember what he said about Trump's wife? He must be successful. Look at his wife. Wives, women are things to them. Things, possessions, sex toys. That's what it is for Hollywood and Robertson. Now you see the glue, how they become bedfellows. They all have the same philosophy over women. And they love to have women do their dirty work. Women do their dirty work to prove that the women are lower than the men. For them, it justifies their view of men by having women like Linda Burrows, Arwen Johnson of Caldwell, Leslie, and Proctor do their dirty work. That's how it goes. So women need to step it up and say no more to Robertson. If you want to blow these guys off, they have Achilles heel. If you want to blow these guys off and ruin their scenario and their game, reveal them. Say that they're not so great. Say that there's other men better than them. They cannot handle that. Their egos are off the charts. Why did the Mike Lang of Disney take Becca, my honeypot wife, to bed on my birthday, July 2nd, for effect like Christmas, holidays in effect, birthday? Why that email saying, Becca, move in with me for 60 days? Why? Let me show you something real quick while we illustrate this. I want to show you how far this goes, because people need to really realize, let's stop saying that it's too much to handle and embrace the excitement that we got everything to bring these clowns down. Let's go that way. Here's the picture of the bed with the shaving kit of Mike Lang, Lang's on Howard in Spokane, Washington, playground of Hollywood, July 2nd, sent on my birthday to Becca Northcutt, who was my honeypot wife, provided, who had a criminal record, Mike Lang of Disney orchestrating everything, saying, Becca, move in with me for 60 days, and shows his bed just set up with a shaving kit on it, 60 days of sex with Becca. Why? I asked the contact that contacted me. The answer was ego. If you sleep with the wife of even though you provided it, the wife of the author, you're better than that author. Caveman thought process. Robertson, Disney, Eisner, Michael Eisner, Mike Lang, Harvey Weinstein, Joel Silver, Steven Spielberg, all of them have the same mentality, exactly down the line. Brian Fitzpatrick, it all brings them together. Although Julia Zarco says Brian Fitzpatrick is gay. She brags about it. That's why he's not married. Yeah. So what, say we, who don't care about these things and just want to make our children safe and have normal family lives and produce work that lifts people. We don't care about your persuasions and things like that. Just don't take it out on us.
And leave our kids alone.
Yeah, leave the children alone.
Leave them alone. Yeah.
Going off of that is as you see, especially right now, celebrities used to carry more power than the politicians. Mm-hmm. Now with technology, and especially with the political agenda, you see everything ramping up for the elections. So currently right now you have a lot of influencers. Before you had the TikTokers, the YouTubers, but right now you see a lot of political influencers as well as a lot of the influencers in general across all platforms teaming up, and it's starting to get clear who's playing with who. Absolutely. And again, it's all for the same agenda. So whether it's Democrat, Republican, it does not matter. There's such a thing called paid opposition. Mm-hmm. And right now you see it in the influencer world. So going off of that, whether you're an artist, a film director in music and script, Hollywood, and think Hollywood is the only way. And anyone who has hopes to become an artist and are creators, what would be some advice, especially right now, as Hollywood is falling, as the elite, everything is falling, everything that's demonic literally is falling. And we've been given an opportunity to change for not only for ourselves, but for future generations and the children, and reinvent what we want to see and be the change in the world we want to see. So for anyone aspiring to become Hollywood level without the satanic side, what would be some advice on hopes for those future artists and creators?
I would say, number one, I would say, earn your way, make it happen. Make your path that others can follow. Don't try to take the easy way out. I have so many people that come my way saying, I have a script and idea. I don't want to hear it. Do your work, do your homework, create the work. It's your baby, it's your passion. Create it and then release it, so that what it comes down to is you need to show it that you did it first. Show that you did it first. Publish it, put it out there after you make it. Don't go to people saying, I've got this great idea. It's not going to work. Have the discipline to follow that idea through and create it yourself. Don't try to short track it. Don't come to me. Don't come to others and go, I got a great idea. I'll let you and don't play this game. I have a great idea. I want you to have it. No, I don't want it.
Yeah.
I've got 14 other screenplays. I'm not a meal ticket for somebody else. I'm trying to save my last son. If you've got a great idea, anybody out there, create that work. Have the discipline and wherewithal and sweat and blood that work to birthing. Make it, nurture that child, create that child, and then reveal that child. If it's a great work, it's gonna happen for you. So no more shortcutting. The problem comes when we go to different people and say, I got an idea. You've already sunk it right there. If it's a good idea, then you're going to lose it. If it's a bad idea, they're going to say, it's not going to work either way for you. The Copyright Office we know is infiltrated. I've shown that. It's infiltrated. That's not going to work either. It's supposed to be there to show that you created the work first. Well, they're going to create things to go before you, like I have, that Gino Laurentiis did for me. Immortals title. No body of work, creating slots to slip it in there after your work is taken. Copyright Office, no go. Not going to work for you. It's owned. It's owned. That's a government facility owned by Hollywood and the FBI. Don't use it. That's giving your baby over to the state. So what you do is you create, find other people like yourself you can create with. And if you're just by yourself, create and put it in a notebook. Don't share it yet. Create it and let it germinate, because that creative process works best if you're not discussing it. Don't discuss it. One of the big problems with Hollywood is they keep doing these brother teams, they claim, for the lifting of work, but they don't have any ideas. The Wachowskis had to lift all the images they thought were cool, put in a storyboard. The fight choreographer told me, a storyboard, visual storyboard, with my script in hand, they try to make it up as they go along. That's why I inserted all those things like the Train Man, Alice in Wonderland. Those things were stuck in there, Superman thing, all stuck in there, because they're going with their little minds, familiar with what they are, making up as they go along, filling in gaps like the DNA at Jurassic Park dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. So create your work, show yourself that you have the discipline to do it all the way through. It's a hard thing to birth a baby. To birth that baby and create a great work, show you have the discipline. If you do that and do a full work, then I'm interested in looking. If you publish it, get it safe, shown that you created it first, I'll take a look. I'll take a look, because you're protecting yourself and you're protecting me.
And remember too, just to enjoy the journey and be patient. Yeah, it might take longer, but too also, even as we got into advocating and even everything that we learned, it inspired us by everything we learned from survivors to start our own organization, because one, we didn't know who to trust. Mm-hmm. Two, we followed the money and did our research. And we picked apart every single organization and everything we were seeing in our research of what we didn't want. And we listened to the survivors and said, this is what they want. And so it inspired us to create not only a database on our website of everything we learned before the internet got scrubbed. Mm-hmm. We wanted a place where people could go and learn firsthand from the survivors, because if you truly go back and listen to all of the podcasts, not only ours, people who've been doing this for years prior to us, we're just the next generation who took it an even step further. And with our generation, we're tech savvy. So we wouldn't be able to do everything that we've done thus far if we didn't have the survivors, if we didn't have people like you who were courageous to come on and tell these stories and educate us firsthand as we continue to break the programming and learn firsthand from all of you. So just knowing that you have to have an open mind and open heart, and not only heal yourself, but also it's not about us. It's bigger than us. For us, it's always going to be about the children, and we're going to do what it takes to change that so our kids in the future generations don't have to suffer the way we see the world and our programming that we had as kids. To once we awaken fully, we were like, your whole childhood, everything comes to shatters, as you were, majority of the world was raised as Disney kids. And so, yeah, your world does shatter, but take that as a lesson and as a learning experience of how can I better, not only if you're not a parent now, how can I better myself? So when I do become a parent and I do see what's going on in the world, how can this change even if you're working with kids, your neighbors? It's not just about our children. It's about all children in humanity. Because at the end of the day, what Hollywood is after is the pure innocence of a child. And that is what they're profiting off of. You can sell a child over and over. You can program those children, especially because they're so innocent and the pure love they have, and they're literally learning. So they are literally profiting off the innocence of the children. So once you protect your child, your nephew, your niece, your neighbor, any child, at the end of the day, we have an obligation as a society to protect the children.
Absolutely right. That's well said. And I think you just brought to light something for myself too, which as a parent, I decided I had to make a choice. Was I going to share everything with Aiden, even the young child, what's going on, or shield him from it? And I'm glad I chose the first part. I educated him. I let him know so he could be safe if someone approached, not to be paranoid, to know that his dad trusted him to tell him everything. And dad would never hold anything back from him. And dad was going to do everything he can to make things work. And if he could analyze and contribute, I was welcoming that and thanking him for his inputs and posing questions to him. What do you think we should do? And that's, a lot of people said that was the wrong way to proceed. It turned out to be the right way to proceed. He did survive all these things. He wasn't taken away. And one of the answers to, I think, is for ourselves, let's not be needy. Where many of us survivors, we find out when we click over to not being needy, but being the person we wish showed up. If we be that person we wish showed up, then we can be that person for other people too, and for our children. So instead of being a victim or being needy, you're going to see me want to be somebody who's the solution, the answer. That's what I want to be. If I can be that, then I can galvanize that. I can be something that becomes a catalyst. The piece was written, that immortal story, to be something that was a code in there to gather like-minded people that had that compassion, cross disciplines, talents to change our world, to create that kind of think tank. You're doing that right now. And that's definitely an answer. That's what I was told would be my comfort in this, is meeting people like yourselves. And it definitely is that way. Like when I worked with Emma, definitely hit home, boom. I was free to talk. It was like it mattered. The other side wants you to feel that if you speak up, it's going to be nonsense. No one cares is what they say. No one's going to care what you say is what they say. No, there are those like yourselves that do care what's going to be said. And for me, it's refreshing to see other people's voices heard. I do not want to see people shut down. And like yourself, I want to form an organization that opens up those doors. I want to create studios and such that people can come and create their work and be off the grid, and everything's provided for as long as they're creating. I'm not going to create their work for them, but if they have the wherewithal to create that work, I'll set them up and have a life for them and their family that they can create that work as long as they create it. No shortcuts. It's in you if it's meant to be. And you're the one that births that baby. No one else is birthing that baby for you. It's in you. It has your particular viewpoint that makes it unique. And I want to encourage that for people. And it really cuts through to the real Mozarts and people out there, Handels out there. So,
So as one of the things as I was watching older episodes with you. I saw a podcast you did with Carmen Studer, and it was about a year ago, and you were talking about the process of layering and the idea of compartmentalizing or different things like that. But you made a really good point that we need to teach our adolescents about this area. And as being parents of adolescents right now, I have a 11 and 14-year-old sons, and Bridget's got a 12-year-old daughter. So we know all about the crazy that goes on in that brainwave. Can you explain more about what you mean by that and why that's important for this age group?
Absolutely. I think adolescence is the most golden time of life, because what's happening is you're going in to go to adulthood. And I think what's designed in this process is what we often note, that there's many feelings going on, many different thought processes simultaneously. Now, our psych field will by and large say that sounds a little crazy. We just get through it. Just get through that adolescence. No, it's there for a reason. It's been there for millions of years. It's not an accident. It's not, and I don't mean to step on people that think we're just 10,000 years old. The thing is that we, whatever the timeline, we are going through adolescence for a reason. If we are going through adolescence feeling lots of things and we learn to manage those different feelings, we'll come out on the other end as adults that are dynamic, charismatic, multi-layered thinking, creating, and we'll also be able to survive the tactics of the other side. They like to get us distracted and focused and despair. That means we're going to focus on one thing to have despair. If we're able to think of different compartmentalize, like you say, different things all at once, creating here, math here, this there, that there, that's not an imbalance. That's a juggling balance. In fact, one of these critics from LA said, you know, my one work that's greenlighted for Off-Broadway, said Tom's like a juggler grabbing firebrands and juggling them, asking for more. That's right, because the adolescence mind was disrupted in a way that I came out of adolescence the way you're supposed to, I believe. Multi-layered thinking. Mm-hmm. So now I create in many ways, and solutions to a problem come like this. Boom! I will see many solutions at the same time and pick right away in a split second. I will pick a solution that works instead of our normal way in business is this. Person gets an idea and holds that idea and pushes that idea and has their hand up and says that idea and holds it and defends that idea and to study the back that idea. It may be number 5 in the line of good ideas.
Right.
Ranking.
Right.
This way, we learn through adolescence to feel and shape our minds to see the field of what's possible, draw it, tag it, take it, the best one, and we're rolling right away. With others that can do it too, it's phenomenal. Why is the Matrix story, even ripped off version, the Immortals, so layered? Why are we, it's full of surprises. And I let the backstory out for a lot of audiences, they can immerse themselves in it, audiences. But the thing is, they can make it their own. And if I give the rights to everybody on this planet, there's no end to how much creativity can be and how many versions of it. Right there's just one work, as copyright law was set to do, to create a whole avalanche of creativity to stimulate the world and the minds of young geniuses and others. And that's what's got Hollywood in uproar, but you need compassion to do it. So adolescence teaches us to be dynamic human beings. If we don't curb it and tell children, you'll just get through it. I celebrate your children and adolescents. My son, celebrate them. Oh my God, he's thriving in everything. Piano behind me, soccer, you name it. He wants to be an engineer. He's taking college course credits already as a sophomore. He's doing, and that's why and after what he's had, where an entire family under Julia Zarco, Jack Althouse, Todd Hilsey have cut him off from every family member. He doesn't have any cousins. He's still thriving. He sits down with me and watches programming together. Dads watch a show together. He's 15. He's 15. So the thing is, those layered thinking, that dynamics, think of it. 2 dynamic people meet. What do I always hear? The layered thinkers that have multiple feelings going on at the same time, that they're not going crazy. I feel compassion, happiness, hope, joy, maybe a frustration a little bit in there at one point, all at the same time. And for acting and writing, they go, it's genius. Audience members watching a performance by somebody doing that, like I've done and gotten awards for it, is saying, I don't know what he's doing, but I sure feel like I'm in his shoes and I'm feeling all these feelings. It's amazing to watch this performance. Well, what about real life when 2 people like that meet together? What would we rather have? Someone who comes up and I'm going to show them I'm not angry, that I'm just going to be listening, and what a great conversation to watch. And we think, wow, if that was really on film, nobody would want to see this film. But if we come up and we're like this, hope, happiness, openness, compassion, long suffering, all these things. I do it in my sculpture. putting layers. I had directors in LA go, this camera guy was saying, or no, sound boom guy was like, Tom's just giving us frustration. And he goes, no, I see hope, compassion, this, that, and this, and I wanted to continue and stay out of his business. Go on, Tom. So when we do that in real life, those that are shallow and insecure, sure, it may rattle your cage and you may not feel better than us. That's your problem. We're not competing.
Right.
But those of us that are having conversations with each other, that are feeling many things at the same time, and relationships like that, that's love in multiple layers being transcended, which children can spot. Children not only go to adolescence to turn into adults that are dynamic, they also can spot it as children, dynamic adults. They're drawn to them. And who else is drawn to dynamic adults? Animals are. Animals trust adults that have layered feelings because nothing's being hidden and it's managed. And we're happy, we're healthy, even though everything's been thrown at us like a shitstorm. We're still happy. I have 2 dead sons. I still love life. I'm going to finish the work. Hollywood didn't realize this. I told them when they said I won the chess game. Contact said, you won the chess game. They're afraid of your power. Well, they should have realized the power of compassion, because this father's never going to stop, because I'm going to do it and dedicate to my sons and honor them through this work by finishing it. So other sufferers and survivors and parents don't have to go through it again. So I'm not stopping. They say, how can you not stop? Because my children were killed. I'm doing it for them. And I'm going to have that film made dedicated to 2 brave young men.
Well, and I think that's so powerful too, even you breaking down that, because so many parents, even when I know I'm going through that whole teenage stage right now, and so many parents are like, oh, it's just a stage. And for me, I'm like, no. And Becky will say the same when it comes to emotions and breaking down those emotions and knowing, like, okay, so if you have anxiety, what is causing that? What triggers it? Let's get to the root of it. But at the same time, sitting back and even honoring and valuing those emotions. Absolutely. And allowing them to pass through. So many people will numb emotions, and that's where you see they turn to alcohol, drugs. Everybody has an addiction of something. So it's important to even teach your children to recognize the emotions and even sit in them and understand it themselves, especially as they're developing and starting to learn their bodies. Because what you don't want to happen is if you just constantly excuse it, oh, it's just that stage. The world is grooming them right now to think a different way. So you don't want somebody else to sit with them and explain that emotion a different way, where it's normalized in a different manner that could be appropriate. And with the way of the world right now and grooming, it will be a sick, unfathomable thing you can't even imagine because of the grooming taking place, especially in Disney, especially in Hollywood, and the whole rape and satanic culture and a pedophile agenda being pushed.
That's right.
So it's important to recognize that. And even just you talking about layering, and those of you who are listening, who are trying to comprehend everything we talked about in this episode, I often like to refer to things in music and also try to give that aspect for those people who understand an artist in the music form. So a song that you would want to listen to as he's talking about layering would be Matrix by Bryson Gray and Tyson James. And right now, as much as I don't want to tie it to politics, in this song, you'll see they talk about a blue pill and a red pill. And so literally, I'm going to read a little bit of the beginning of the lyrics, but just as we talk about this podcast and as he talks about the Matrix, as he talks about even layering in this song by Bryson and Tyson, it talks about you take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and you believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland and I show you how deep the rabbit hole really goes. And as you go through that journey and you're learning about yourself and awakening and finding your intuition and going down these rabbit holes, it brings you back to a source and power, a power within you. And many will turn to God, faith, a higher power, whatever you believe, to each his own. But just really sit back and honor those emotions and listen to what he's saying, what we say in our podcast. But if you want to break down a lyrical side, and if you can understand better with music, break down those lyrics and really look at open mind to everything we're talking about.
You just said something so important. One of the ways I explain layered thinking is music. And this song right here was done in layers, and it creates imagery with the layers, and people see the same imagery all the time. It's a universal language. But the idea is, like we're saying about being dynamic beings, why we go through adolescence, it's like we go from a solo line to harmony. We can be harmonious creatures. We can be, that's the harmony of different feelings. They can be harmonious. And then what happens is there's all these positive feelings, right? And if there's anything negative that enters our life, I say that we put it back, I call it the elm like a tree. We put it back in the library and store it for reference. So we don't negate anything. If we negate anything, our mind's going to focus on it. If we don't negate it and allow it to go back to the library, it's a reference point and we're not going to dwell on it. So we don't get stuck. It doesn't create despair. It doesn't create something we're going to grind on. In fact, our mind is made so that when we put an input, it's going to chew on it for an answer. And if I go something like, if I have a negative input where I go, I can't stand that person, our mind's going to look for a solution. It's not going to be pretty. It's taking up creative space and creative ability. And we're going to have physical manifestations, sweat, clenching, things like this. Physical manifestations, sometimes sickness is going to appear that's extreme because I'm chewing on something that's a negative input. Don't have those negative inputs. Put only the positive. If somebody says something negative to you, like plenty of shills do, like he's crazy, BS, whatever, they've done that. They're starting to shorten it now because they can't really refute the evidence. So basically what they do is short things. But I just take that and put it back in the library as, okay, there's a reference point. If I negate it or try to shut away from it, it'll find a way to come back and my mind's going to chew on it. It's already been introduced to my mind, introduced as a problem. So we don't introduce anything to our mind as a problem. We introduce everything as either reference material or something to be stored as a valued, cherished memory. And then those layers now function in harmony, and we cannot be infiltrated, bought off. We can't be influenced. And if our children learn layered, especially in adolescence, is prime targeting time. Look at my son. Look what happens. They're not negated. We don't negate them. We don't negate things in our mind. If we lie, we teach our mind that we're lying, like my sister, brother, cousin. Yeah. They've learned to lie. And you'll see liars always say, it's all lies. They'll always accuse all lies. And they're always afraid of getting caught. And they're always usually reading for scripts. But for those of us that don't lie, it's healthy, especially for the creative process and the mind. If I don't have anything, if my mind knows to trust me, my mind works as a processing unit and trusts me to tell the truth, I'm trustworthy for loved ones, for others. I don't have to worry about being truthful and transparent. I will be. When I do interviews, I won't need a script. I'll speak from the heart. And all they can do is say, it's all lies.
Well, and how wonderful your analogy of the music too is to, especially in adolescence, to teach kids. I teach my kids all the time, be who God made you to be. You can be the very best Peyton you can be because that's the only Peyton that they made you. That's it. That's all you have.
A wonder. Yeah.
But with music, you may not play this part. You may play this part, and your part has to be played the way it is so that the whole song sounds right. You don't have to dislike my part because you're playing your part and all of it together. We don't all have to be playing the same beats at the same time with the same instrument. And that's what people get so confused about, is everybody has to be the same. And the only way that we're all going to work in the world is if everyone does the same thing at the same time with the same thought process.
That's right.
No, allow humanity to be humanity. You do you, I'll do me. We do it with respect and we play beautiful music.
That's right. And our positive, with all that positive with that, then our mind starts focusing on how to make things even better. There's a relationship with ourselves and our mind. Yep. Our mind becomes an instrument that is in harmony with us. And what's really interesting is it will come up with solutions to good things. Instead of how can I hurt my neighbor that may have affronted me or my sister, I'll be thinking, oh, I should send a letter of thank you to someone. Or I'm going to send a package. I'm going to take care of that elderly person next door. I'm going to give them a rose. I'm going to give them some candy. I'm going to make a compliment to the person here. People, animals even see. They see it. I think they see. Children see. They come up to me all the time at supermarkets, in parking lots, all the time. Parents are always like, wait, honey. And it's like they come up and go, over to you and take your hand. They know you're not a threat because we can read more than we realize we can read as human beings. Our species can read a lot more on each other than we think we can. And that scares the other side because the genuine ones will stand out, which means the ones that are corrupt are going to fall from power and that pyramid's going to flip. And so what happens is based on just using our common sense and our senses in layers, what we learned through adolescence, we can rule this world to be a better and a good world that everyone is safe. Everyone has a say. And those that want to be one-layered and are into just trying to cover their bases and their control are going to be left out of the party by their own doing. And they'll be angry and raging as they accuse us of it. And less, their noise will diminish away as they become more and more curled up in a ball on the floor of Rolling Meadows Elementary.
Yeah, and that's what makes the world unique. Going off of both of your guys' comments is everyone being yourself. And as I often will always remind myself and say it to others when they're discouraged, is to remember an original is always worth more than a copy, and just being yourself. Because even like with us in podcasting and connecting survivors, it's like we all don't know everything, but like a piece to the puzzle, if we all come together and we create or even try to put that puzzle together, we're not only inspiring one another, we're empowering change and creating that ripple effect. As we often talk about the power of one. If we tell one person, that one person's going to tell somebody else. It just keeps going. And that's how we start to make a change, is literally it starts in your home. It starts with you, and focusing on that and being literally the change you want to see in the world. Because for us, even with our podcast, we all have that's what makes us so unique, is we all have strong points in everything that we do. And when we don't know something, we come together. Or even as we talk to survivors and we have questions based on the programming we've learned or what media has told us and different Hollywood headlines, we aren't afraid to ask those questions and have an open conversation. You have to let down the ego and have the mindset to learn from one another. And that's the only way we all grow, is if we take pieces of each other and learn to create change and all create together. There's so much room for everyone to blossom. It's not just about one person. And that's what literally will change future generations for the children.
Absolutely right. I mean, I'm thinking about like how the other side of it, they want to be more clever. That's what it is in Hollywood. They want to be clever. And even the FBI agencies and things like that want to be more clever. And the more they see dynamic people that actually are genuine, have compassion, and are drawing the attention of the public, we don't seek it. They'll accuse us of that, like Sophia Stewart does all the time to me. She's the one with the company that has the eyes on her thing. But they'll always do that because they're in competition with you all the time. They believe in, it's about power only, they say, and it's about, only one can really win in the end. So they're all perpetual competition. But they come on us that actually do the hard. All these people like watching and things like this that are part of this survivor thing. They'll go against us the most because they're afraid of us just being seen for being genuine. That's why anonymous is when they approach, say, don't ever contact him or her again. Don't ever go around them again. That's part of the playbook because they don't want them to associate with you, because they may slip up and reattach to your humanity and say things they shouldn't say, such as what was done wrong.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was an excellent episode, and we really appreciate you coming on and giving all of your testimony. And again, just for all of our listeners, like, know that people would not be going after him if it wasn't true story. That's the part that I really get out of this, is they don't they don't care about liars. They don't care about all of that stuff. They care about people who are going to hurt them. And that's where we sit. And you really have validated a lot of our survivors as well with your story. And so I hope that they get a little comfort. Again, I'm very sorry for your loss. Your loss is.
I mean, we're going to employ it for all. And I believe my sons are with me. I do believe that. Aiden's here, and I believe they're with me. And it's going to end up, they'll be honored in the end here, and we'll make a difference for other people.
Yes. Amen.
I wanted to point out too for you one thing. The FBI's latest excuse now is they're saying that they only go after those that go after them. That is a coward's way of saying they've been going after people in the wrong way. They're making a pre-excuse now internationally, saying that we've only gone after those that are going after us.
Mhm.
That's the bully excuse on the playground. That is the excuse. They always claim victim when they get caught.
Yeah. So for listeners, make sure you're seeing when you see that in the papers and in news articles, they're already trying to play us. So it's a good valid point.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And two more last questions is what we often end with on all of our podcasts is for anyone who is dealing with adversity, whether it's in their life and even being a truth teller or a survivor or speaking out and coming forward. How do you deal with adversity in your day-to-day life, as well as you spoke out where you're often they often try to silence you?
Be yourself. Don't change. Keep your character intact. When you come out of the fiery furnace, be even larger, be even better. So do not lose your character, your nature. Don't let it get twisted or damaged by these people. Make that a goal. Make it a conscious goal that you're going to remain who you are, the beautiful person you are. And like you said, you're made for a certain reason. This is who you are. Safeguard that and that of your children. And you will show them by example that you do not change, you do not buckle, you don't get transformed, you don't, let them tear you down into something different or remake you or break you or subdue you. So be who you are, be strong who you are. And I would say also, if you start getting harassed, make it public. Do a website, put stuff on there, show your evidence, safeguard your evidence, distribute your evidence. Do not wait. If you start getting harassed, take pictures of the cars pulling up. Hold the people accountable and put it out there. You can't deal one by one. You can't just call a friend and say, this is happening. You'll wear out your friend. What you need to do is make a public record. Your friend can share it. It can be there for you. But often the tactic is used to send us into individual reasoning and try to work with people to save us. That's not the answer. We'll be our own saviors. We'll save ourselves. And that way we become empowered to help others, but make it a public record. The other side is it's doing what they fear most. It's doing what they fear most. That is the key to bring down the others. Use their own fear against them and be the beautiful person you are throughout it. So your children don't lose you through the process or any transformation. They get you at the end, a hero who made it through.
Thank you. And if you had the world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
I'd say, if I'm talking to the world, I'd say you're a beautiful world. You're an amazing world filled with amazing beings. And I'm talking about all life. All life is worth it. We're going to really make it when humanity and we realize that the way to look at life is that we can't imagine losing even anyone, that all of us are essential, that each one of us should be helping up the hill of life. And that if we get to the top and anyone's missing, we didn't do our job well. We should make it up all together. And at the end is a big embrace. And I don't think that's lollipops in La La Land. I think that is possible. Let's value life so much that we can't imagine losing the elderly or losing a child. If you see a child wave, respond. Don't neglect them. Take the moment, get on your knees and say, I see you, or hi back. Don't neglect a child and don't silence the elderly, and lift each other. If someone's bothering you, you don't have to stay for it. If family treats you bad, find new family, and then leave the door open if they want to come back. Show what your parameters are. Like, this is what I need. This is what I'm standing by. When you're ready to meet this, we'll reconnect. Until then, I'm going to take care of my loved ones. They'll respect you for that. In the end, everybody wants that. In the end, everybody wants somebody strong who's there for them and can hold their own weight and come through in time of crisis. Let's all be those people. Let's all be that example. and then the world will follow. So to the world, I say, you're a beautiful place. A great world is coming, and our children will be part of it. And I'll have no regret when I die. I'll look back and go, I'm glad I did every choice I made.
Love that. Well, thank you again for joining our podcast, and we truly appreciate you even taking the time to have this conversation with us. And for those of you listening, like as we often talk about on our podcast, is we don't script things and we don't believe in it. We've been censored. Hollywood does a lot of that. For us, it's about using our voice and learning together. So this is actually, you're witnessing our live reactions. We've never really talked. We literally set up a podcast and that was that. But you literally will always get our real and raw emotions. And as we often say, you won't see us scripting anything, but usually our intros. So again, thank you for coming on and having this conversation.
I had one last thing I wanted to share, and it's for men. I just felt like it's guided kind of, it's like for men, don't be afraid to show emotion. Show it in layers, feel it. And children are going to respond. Children are going to respond. And that is going to be the greatest thing you do besides building an empire or doing a successful company, taking time with a child, having them smile and laugh. That's your legacy. That's worth going for. Take the time to be real and genuine. And then drop the facade, men, of trying to be cool, tough guy. It does not do anything except alienate you. Ask the women. It's not going to do any good for you. Ask the children. Ask my son. Be a real person. Don't be afraid to show what you feel. The more you show it, the more they know they can trust you.
More love you'll get.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have no future if we don't protect our children. We have a duty to protect the innocent. If we don't, that blood is on our hands. Everyone has a story. Together, we must rise for the children. It starts with one person. It starts with you. When you say, am I a part of the problem? When you face that mirror and start holding people, family, and friends accountable, and you start being present, Put down your smartphones and listen to your children, family, or friends. The world is hurting. We all have a story. You are not alone. Be bold, be you, be your own kind of beautiful. Stand tall, speak your truth. The world will adjust. Know that they can't take your voice. It's never too late to do what's right. Survivors, we know energetically, especially at this time as the truth continues to come to light, that it is a lot, but continue to be the light, stand in your truth. You are courageous. You are a warrior. Together we will change this. It's time. Enough is enough. Survivors, you are not alone. We hear you, we see you, we stand by you, sending you love, light, blessings, and prayers. Love, as always, the Imagination and Save Our Children podcast. Take your candle and go light your world.